In Father, Son, Holy Spirit, Amen. Our Almighty Father, thank you for the blessing of life, of health, and of wisdom. We offer you today's hearing as we probe on crucial matters. We pray for both our resource persons and each member of the committee that we may be able to address the subject in ways that will shed light to all parties concerned. In the same way that we are hopeful to provide clarity to the public to whom we owe loyalty. As we pray for every Filipino family, we also pray for our staffs, our frontliners, and for the men and women who has greatly sacrificed for us in our battle against this pandemic. With the intercession of the Blessed Mother, El Nuestra Señora la Virgen del Pilar, this we pray in the mighty name of Jesus. Amen.
Thank you. Please remain standing for the singing of the national anthem. We will now call the roll of members. Is there any move to dispense? Is there any second? There is a motion to dispense with the calling of the roll duly seconded. Hearing no objection, the motion is carried. We will now proceed with the reading of the minutes of the committee meeting held on September 27. The minutes of the meeting was emailed to the committee members for the reading and perusal. Is there any motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to dispense with the reading of the minutes and consider it to have been approved.
Is there any second? There is a motion to dispense with the reading of the minutes of meeting on September 27 and for its approval. There is a second to the motion. Hearing no objection, the same is approved. Good morning, honorable members of the House of Representatives, cabinet secretaries, public officials, members of the media, and our viewers online. Welcome to the fourth and final hearing on the motu proprio inquiry on the COA report on the alleged overpriced medical and health supplies procured by DOH for the COVID-19 response. As I have said before, the House of Representatives Blue Ribbon Committee shall not prolong the legislative inquiry on this subject. In 3 meetings alone, we have unraveled vast information for this committee to make a recommendation on whether malfeasance, misfeasance, or nonfeasance was committed by public officials. As the chairman, I ensured that the discussions remained within the topic without hindering the interpellation of our House members. We continue meeting today with the presence of an important witness who went to the House of Representatives last Friday in her own free will and volition for protective custody. The House of Representatives is the House of the people, and we shall not refuse citizens who seek refuge and help from us. Let us always remember that the Philippines is a democratic country. The House of Representatives is not in the business of arresting unwilling resource persons. We do not want to resort to bullying and intimidation. The House of Representatives Blue Ribbon Committee has and will always be for freedom of speech, justice, and fair play. It is for this reason that I, as the chairman of this committee, have allowed our honorable members from both sides of the spectrum to freely question our resource persons, but only within the bounds of the inquiry. I personally thank Deputy Speaker Rodante Marcoleta and the honorable members of the Makabayan Bloc for their thorough and respective interpolations. There is, however, something that I wish to clarify. Meron nagsasabi na bibili o nababayaran ako online. I assure you, the Filipino people, that I cannot be bought. Hindi po ako mabibili. All I have is the mandate bestowed upon me by the Republic of the Philippines and the trust and confidence from the Honorable Speaker, Lord Alan J. Velasco, to be an independent chairman of the House Blue Ribbon Committee. As such, it is my duty to uphold the Constitution and to afford complete rights to our fellow Filipinos, grant due process, and not to succumb to intimidation and unfair trial before this committee. Neither shall I employ tactics that incite trial by publicity before media. As chairman, I am always for the truth, nothing else. And if there is evidence to pin down high officials of the government, then we shall strongly recommend charges against them before the appropriate courts and tribunals. We will decide swiftly where the evidence takes us. Rest assured, our committee report will be fair and based on evidence. On that note, let us commence our fourth and final hearing on this inquiry. Once again, thank you for our honorable members and resource persons for your presence today and for your commitment and participation in the last three hearings as part of our quest to find the truth. Let us finish our hearing today knowing that we have performed our role as public servants, and may we always place the health, safety, and welfare of our fellow Filipinos as our highest and most important priority. Maraming salamat po, and may God bless us all. Good afternoon, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Last September 30, the lawyer of Krizle Grace Mago wrote the Speaker of the House of Representatives, and I direct the committee secretary to put on record the letter. Comsec.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. With the permission of the chairman, I will read the letter of Ms. Mago in toto. The letter addressed to the Honorable Lord Alan J. Velasco, Speaker of the House of Representatives, dated September 30, 2021. It was addressed to the Speaker through Representative Michael Edgar Y. Aglipay, the Chairman of the House Blue Ribbon Committee. May I quote, "Dear Speaker Velasco, may I respectfully request for protective custody from the House of Representatives. Presently, I cannot speak freely about the ongoing investigation on the alleged overprice of medical equipments without feeling threatened due to the undue influence and pressure being exerted from various sources. I feel that my life and liberty is in grave danger because of my coming out and my desire to speak the truth. Also now, I came across the information from the news that the police and NBI are tracking me down, including my grandparents' home in the province, and took photos and videos without their consent. I truly regret that I am being treated like a fugitive from justice. The protective custody that I am requesting from the House of Representatives would help me speak freely without unnecessary compulsion from anyone. Thank you, and I look forward to an affirmative reply on my humble request in the interest of truth and justice. End quote. Signed, Krizle Grace Mago. Your Honors.
Thank you, Comsec. In reply, the Speaker ordered the chairman of this committee, 26 hours after that letter was received, to grant protective custody to Krizle Mago. And she has voluntarily arrived here on October 1, 6:30 p.m. by herself. So that was already resolved for the information of the members. Second is my letter to Senator Richard Gordon on two things. First is the request that since Mr. Lincoln Ong, a vital witness to this case, is in their custody, that he be granted access to this hearing today because he was absent in the last hearing of this committee. Second is a letter to inform him. Five minutes after Krizle Mago arrived, we informed the Blue Ribbon Committee of the Senate that we are in custody of Krizle Mago, and we will freely allow her and obligate her to attend the hearings in the Senate and provide her facilities to do such. So Senator Gordon has replied to these two requests, and I direct the committee secretary to put it on record.
With the permission of the chairman, may I read in toto the letter of Senator Richard J. Gordon addressed to the Honorable Michael Edgar Y. Aglipay, Chairperson of the Committee on Good Government and Public Accountability. The letter is dated October 2, 2021. And I quote, Dear Chairperson Aglipay, we acknowledge receipt of your letter. We are relieved that Ms. Krizle Grace Mago is alive, safe, and well. If we need her to testify, we will surely communicate with your office. Regarding your request for Mr. Lincoln Ong's appearance at your hearings, we acknowledge receipt of the link that Mr. Ong may use to connect to the proceedings. Such will be relayed to the Senate Sergeant at Arms, who will ensure that the facility for connection is available. End quote. Very truly yours, signed by the Chairperson, Richard J. Gordon. Your Honors.
Thank you, Comsec. May I direct the committee secretary to call the names of our members present today, here and online.
Mr. Chairman, in today's meeting, we have the following members in attendance. We are joined here by the Deputy Speaker, Rodante Marcoleta. Via Zoom, we are joined by Representative Angelo Barba, Vice Chairman Johnny T. Pimentel, Representative Alfredo Garbin Jr., Representative Alan Dohali, Representative Cesar Jimenez Jr., Representative Adrian Ebcas, Deputy Speaker Rose Marie Baby Arenas, Deputy Majority Leader John Marvin Yu Servo. We also have Representative Ferdinand Gaite, Deputy Speaker Deogracias Savellano, Representative Claudine Diana Bautista, and Representative Ron Salo. Your Honors.
Thank you. May I now direct the committee secretary to inform us on the attendance of our invited resource persons.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In today's meeting, we have the following resource person in attendance. From the Commission on Audit, we have Supervisory Auditor Dora Ugay, OIC Supervising Auditor Teresa Ronquillo, and the Audit Team Leader Danilo S. Mirasol. From the Department of Budget and Management, we have
Walang audio. Okay daw. Yeah.
From the Department of Budget, we have Undersecretary and OIC Tina Rose Marie Kanda and Undersecretary Kim Robert De Leon. We also have Attorney Jason Mayer Uwayan, the OIC for Procurement Service, DBM. Thank you. Mr. Mervin Takintik, Procurement Management Officer, PBM. Mr. Alan Raul Catalan, Chief Accountant, former Chief Accountant of the DBM, and former DBM Undersecretary, Attorney Lloyd Christopher Lau. We also have from DBM Procurement Service, Attorney Jolas Brutas, and Mr. Joshua Laure. From the DOH, we have Dr. Celia Carlos from RITM. From the National Task Force, we have Director Narisa Cruz. We also have the Deputy Ombudsman, Attorney Warren Rex Leong. From the BOC, we have Commissioner Ray Leonardo Guerrero. From AMLAC, we have Attorney Mel Georgie Racela. And from Pharmally Pharmaceutical Corporation, we have via Zoom Mr. Lincoln Ong, Mr. Huang Chuyen, Mr. Mohit Darhani, Mr. Twinkle Dargani, and we also have here physically present Miss Krizle Grace Mago. Via Zoom, we also have Mr. Michael Yang, Your Honors.
Thank you, Comsec. May I remind those resource persons who took their oath during previous hearing that you are under the same oath. Since Krizle is personally here, I think Comsec, we should repeat her oath so that it will be taken here via video. Comsec, may you administer the oath to Krizle Mago? Administer mo ulit. Hindi, okay lang. Ulitin mo ulit. Kasi
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth before these congressional inquiries, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Mago, why did you seek the protection under the House of Representatives?
Mr. Chairman, as indicated in my letter, I want to speak freely without undue influence from varying sources.
Do you have anything to say to this committee?
Mr. Chairman, I prepared an opening statement. May I be allowed to read it?
Okay, 10 minutes. Please proceed.
Good morning. I am Krizle Grace Mago, a former employee of Pharmally Pharmaceutical Corporation. To begin, I extend my gratitude to the House of Representatives Committee on Good Government and Public Accountability for graciously allowing me time to make an opening statement and for having me under their protective custody. I am here to address a few points. First, I confirm that the official statement dated 28th of September 2021 was issued by me. I apologize for going off the radar for a few days. I simply needed time to breathe and to process everything that had just transpired. I also extend my gratitude to all those who expressed concern over my safety and well-being. I am here, I am alive, and I am safe. Thank you very much. Let me also share a few sentiments that I have harbored for quite some time. As a shy and socially awkward person, the past 2 months have been difficult for me, which has been exacerbated by my involvement in the ongoing investigations where I was invited as one of the resource persons. While testifying before the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee, last September 13, 2021, I was questioned about the specifics of Pharmally's first contract with PSDBM. It was extremely traumatic for me to be accused of lying and threatened with contempt. And true to their threat, they already arrested one of our executives. Personally, I was perplexed on how I could be perceived as a liar when I was simply answering questions directly based on the information that was reflected on our records, and I even willingly submitted the documents upon request. And after I relayed the sequence of events for that specific contract, one thing that stood out the most was the reaction to the advanced delivery, which included disparaging remarks like parang grab lang. I do recognize that each and every one of us are entitled to our own interpretation and reaction to every revelation made during the hearings. And while I personally agree that delivery made before issuance of a purchase order was unusual, we should not overlook the fact that this took place during an unprecedented time. I personally struggled to purchase face masks at that same time for personal use. And I am certain that majority of the Filipino people also relate to this experience, most especially our frontliners. Furthermore, and on a more personal note, I tested positive for COVID-19 during the course of the hearings, which resulted in a decline in my physical and emotional health. Additionally, the overwhelming pressure and the intense scrutiny of the investigations have had a detrimental effect to my mental health. Over and above this, my personal mobile number and even my current place of address were also revealed publicly. This violated my right to privacy as a private citizen and also resulted in unwanted harassment and even disturbing messages and calls. Moving on, and on a second point, I deny all allegations made by the unidentified witness who appeared in a video presented by Senator Risa Ontiveros on September 24, 2021. And please allow me to expound on that. Pharmally Pharmaceutical Corporation or PPC has never delivered damaged items to the government, neither does it intend to. PPC conducts its routine quality inspections on the inventory prior to making deliveries. And it is in the conduct of these quality inspections that we were able to identify damaged face shields, which includes but not limited to dented, folded, torn or broken, and discolored face shields. Now, these damaged face shields were immediately segregated subject to proper disposal, and therefore they were excluded for delivery. And moreover, when we received the inventory, it was already inconsistently packed to begin with, meaning that there were face shields packed individually, and then there are also those in groups. And to make matters worse, there was a significant number of packed face shields that we opened solely for the purpose of removing the damaged items. And as a result, we ended up with an inventory so inconsistently packed, ranging from about 6 to 10 face shields per pack, in addition to the face shields that were individually packed. So I raised this concern to our management in a meeting sometime in August 2021. And it has been decided to repack the stocks uniformly in groups of 10 face shields per packaging. This is for an easier and more efficient inventory management and accounting. And this is the same instruction that I gave to the warehouse personnel. And in the course of the repacking, the face shields, the packaging which had broken quantities were merged together to form 10 pieces per packaging. And in the conduct of the repacking, um, the product certificates got mixed up and some were subsequently discarded because the staff only needed to put one product certificate per packaging. So to further clarify, the face shields required by the Department of Health for this specific contract are non-medical grade face shields, and this is also stated in the technical specifications. Third, third point, regarding my previous testimonies on the questions pertaining to swindling the government, I do admit that it was a pressured response. Given the amount of pressure that I was under at that time, and even the rush of emotions associated with the allegations made and my subsequent admission, I was not in the proper frame of mind to think clearly. At that time, to be honest, what I considered was the fact that we already delivered a portion of these face shields containing the mixed product certificates to the Department of Health. But after the Senate hearing and after I evaluated my answers or my testimonies, I realized that the face shields that we partially delivered to the Department of Health have not been inspected. Hindi pa po siya na-inspect and na-accept ng Department of Health. So hindi pa rin po siya na-allocate and distribute sa mga end users. And in addition, wala pong natanggap na bayad ang Pharmally from the Department of Health for this partial delivery. So I hope that this clarifies the situation. Finally, in light of the information presented, I thank you for your time and interest, and I welcome any questions that you may have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Before the interpellation, I'd like to ask Krizle, is there anybody who from any party who talked to you to draft that statement, to say something or to assist you in your statement?
None, Mr. Chairman. I made this opening remarks on my own po. Opening statement.
Okay. On September 24, 2021, you mentioned on record in a Senate hearing led by Senator Gordon that Pharmally Pharmaceutical Corporation tampered with the manufacturing date of face shields and deemed these procured goods as substandard and expired. Can you please affirm the truthfulness of this statement that you made?
Mr. Chairman, the face shields were not expired and substandard. And I've mentioned in my opening statement that the damaged face shields were immediately segregated for proper disposal po. And there was a mix-up of the product certificates po when we repacked the face shields. That's kasi isa lang po yung product certificate na nilalagay sa packaging containing 10 face shields. So there were times na yung mga ibang product certificates were discarded kasi sobra po.
So ibig sabihin, iba-ibang source ng mga face shields, nirepack nyo sa isang set, ganun ba?
Ang nangyari po, Mr. Chairman, is that may mga binuksan kaming mga sets ng face shields para i-remove po yung mga damaged items. And ang nangyari is that merong mga iba-ibang quantity per sets and hindi siya uniform. So when we decided to repack, doon po namin minerge yung mga packaging na may broken quantity po.
So, Ms. Mago, did Mr. Moit Dargani instruct you to change the dates of the date of manufacture?
There was never an instruction to change the date of manufacture, the production date, Mr. Chairman. But there was an instruction to proceed with the repacking po.
Okay. Aside from face shields, are there any other goods that were sold to the government that were substandard, expired, or tampered?
None, Mr. Chairman.
Also, I'd like to clarify on this statement. Pharmally test kits expiring in 6 months were accepted by the DOH and DBM, even if their purchase order requires 24 to 36 months expiry. Can you comment on that? What's your answer?
Mr. Chairman, as explained by DOH Secretary Duque before, the shelf life for novel test kits, such as the test kits for COVID-19, has a limited shelf life pa lang po. So that is 6 months. And I believe it was also
Sino
required.
nagsabi na 24 to 36 months kailangan sa purchase order? Nakasulat daw sa purchase order.
It was in the technical specifications po, Mr. Chairman, but I believe we offered 6 months po based on the actual product brochure and product instruction for use.
So the DOH was informed that you will be delivering 6 months life of test kits. They were aware of it.
From what I can recall, Mr. Chairman, they are aware of it.
Ms. Mago, I listened to your opening statement. It's different from the opening of the statements that you made last September 24. So, are you ready to be charged with perjury just in case? Are you ready to defend yourself just in case somebody charges you with perjury?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Thank you. I'll be asking further questions later. We will now proceed with the interpellations. We will recognize members on a first to register basis, and please register with the COMSEC if you wish to be listed as an interpellator. May I remind the members to limit your questions to issues and refrain from asking questions already answered. Also, please observe proper decorum and give due respect to our resource persons and guests who took time out of their busy schedules to assist this committee in proceeding in our hearing. Thank you. The first in our list of interpellators is the birthday boy, Congressman Pido Garbin. Congressman Garbin, you have 20 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning to all who are present in today's hearing. Mr. Chair, allow me to state my observations as an active member who actively participated for the past 3 hearings. We were able to, establish facts in the said previous hearings. First is on the overprice, Mr. Chair. The COA and the Department of Trade and Industry has reiterated that there was no overprice on the PPEs and on the face masks. In fact, the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee has practically conceded that there was no overprice. Now, on the legal process that was followed in the procurement of the goods, Mr. Chair, it was also my observation during the past 3 hearings that the legal process was followed under the Bayanihan 1 and also on the emergency procurement of goods. In fact, the Deputy Speaker, Congressman Dapti Macorleta, made it very clear, Mr. Chair, in his questioning of Mr. Mona Brea that there was no need for the usual due diligence required under the competitive bidding under the Bayanihan 1, and more importantly, under the circumstances during the beginning of the pandemic. And even Mona Brea considered that other emergency cases, this type of due diligence, Mr. Chair, is not necessary given the circumstances involved in the emergency cases. Testimony was also given, coupled with the testimony of the GPPB, Mr. Chair, in previous hearings. It shows that the process followed by the DBMPS was not illegal and was consistent with Bayanihan 1. Mr. Chair, let me direct my question to the former Inspection Division Chief, George Mendoza. Is he around, Mr. Chair?
Yes, he is. Mr. George Mendoza, please answer the questions of Congressman Pido Garbin.
Yes, Your Honor, present po.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Mendoza, I'll be delving on the issue of the pre-signed delivery and inspection forms being alleged in the Senate Blue Ribbon hearing. Mr. Mendoza, during the previous hearing, it was mentioned that you signed on at least 2 occasions inspection and delivery reports before the actual delivery of stocks. Do you confirm the same, Mr. Mendoza?
Yes, of Your Honor, but I explain naman po why it was conducted considering we deviated from the usual process that we do. Opo, I have signed 2 ICARs or inspection reports. Since this is a document, not actually an inspection report, but a pro forma document that will be needed to process the payment in advance. Opo, considering po, as I mentioned in the Senate, that the goods or the PPEs are still in China. And at that time, no flights, no means of delivery can be made either. Opo, so that we availed po, no? I understand we requested the assistance of the Philippine Air Force C-130 to pick up the PPEs there in China. Kaya lang, prior to that, the Chinese suppliers there do not accept our purchase order, considering nga po na at that time, agawan po, no? For the term, forgive me for agawan po ng PPEs sa China. So if you don't have cash, wala kang makukuha ang PPE. Considering at that time po, yung kasagsagan po ng pandemic, we do not have the luxury of time to wait for the yung sundin po yung proseso natin with regards po sa payment, inspection, acceptance, and payment po. Opo.
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
Naghang
sir.
yata, Mr. Chair.
Hello, Mr. Mendoza.
Opo.
Andiyan pa siya.
Yes, malinaw po ba ako, Your Honor? Narinig po ba ako?
Yes, malinaw ka.
Yes, opo. As I left off po, no, yun na nga po, at that time po, at the pandemic, an advance payment has to be made for us to be accommodated po, no, mabigyan po tayo ng PPE stocks that will be distributed po sa ating mga health workers, frontliners po.
Yes, Mr. Chair, there was this short interruption of my internet connection. Now, to what procurement does you pre-sign the ICAR refer to, Mr. Mendoza? Kanino ho yung ICAR? Para saan ho yun?
Opo, ang ICAR po, no, stands for Inspection, Certification, and Acceptance Report. Normally, we prepare this one. Yung ICAR po, no, for info po ng lahat, is a system-generated document po. No? So, it certifies that the items have been inspected and acceptance. Kaya lang po, as I mentioned po earlier, this is a deviation po ng ating the usual process that we do. And for the info na rin po, this is the first time po, no, yung dalawang ICAR that we signed, that we released in the history po ng procurement service that we have done that. Normally,
Sino po yung
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mendoza, sino po yung dalawang Chinese suppliers
As
who
far
were
as I
issued?
recall, Your Honor, as far as I can recall, it is Zhou and Chunsen, if I am not mistaken po. Chunsen and Zhou po.
And what was the agreement regarding the delivery of the PPEs directly procured from China?
Opo,
If you
you will
still
note, Your Honor, you will note po that sa amin po is the ano po, no, yung sa inspection po, no, yung manner, no, how that transpired po in procurement. On our end, what I can relay po is yung sinundo po namin yung PPEs doon sa China, no, since yung ating I understand the purchase order is parang FOB China Airport. Opo. So
what do you mean by FOB? Can you please state for the record?
ano po, freight on board, meaning sa China po kukunin yung goods. China suppliers will not deliver the PPEs in the Philippines. So the only way we can get it is na nga po, yung through the military aircraft, the C-130 po ng Philippine Air Force.
So meaning, the ICAR is necessary to process the advance payment, tama po ba?
Opo. Kasi ito po yung na-mention ko na rin po sa Senate po na meron po kaming system in existence that prior to the processing of payment, an ICAR has to be prepared with this system generated po.
Pero Mr. Mendoza, would you
Yes, sir.
consider it, or would you consider that act as an act of falsification of public document?
In my own belief po, Your Honor, ay hindi po masasabing falsification considering that the goods po naman ay nakuha po naman properly, nakarating po naman sa ating bansa at upon reaching sa atin po, doon po namin ginawa yung the usual inspection and acceptance po ng
So you still conducted actual inspections upon arrival of the goods in the Philippines, is that correct?
Definitely, Your Honor po, kasi nga you will note if you have copies po ng aming ICAR, meron pong kulatilla doon that even if we release the ICAR in advance, the PPEs will still have to be subjected po for inspection.
So but you already issued the ICARs, and what else will you issue to the document upon actual inspection?
Opo, Your Honor, as I've said po kanina, that the ICAR will serve as a pro forma document only for purposes lang po ng processing ng payment. Opo. And I've said...
yes, I understand, Mr. Mendoza. But upon arrival of the goods, yung PSDBM ba at yung Department of Health jointly inspected the items when they arrive in the Philippines?
As I can recall, dapat po ganun po mangyari considering that the DOH is the end user of these PPEs, Your Honor. Opo.
And tanong ko lang po, sino po ba ang humingi sa iyo ng the pro forma of the ICAR that was prepared?
Opo, naging issue nga po sa Senate yan considering na who instructed me. Of course, ayun na nga po, I was told nga po na by Sir Raul Catalan at that time that an ICAR has to be prepared for them to process the payment.
So it was the former Finance Division Chief Raul Catalan who ordered you?
I cannot say order, but advised as I see it, Your Honor, na the ICAR has to be prepared, for attachment for payment.
Mr. Chair, just to continue with my questioning, can you give me just a little time just to elicit some question to Raul Catalan since his name was alluded to by Mr. Mendoza. Mr. Catalan, can you entertain just a few questions before I conclude my interpellation, Mr. Chair?
I'm present, Your Honor.
Mr. Catalan, do you confirm what George Mendoza said that the subject ICARs were issued as a pro forma document needed to process advance payment to Chinese suppliers?
Thank you for this chance, Honor, to clarify this transaction. Um, when I was asked last time in the Senate, they wanted to clarify if I am the one who gave the instruction to Mr. Mendoza. Ang sabi ko po ron, ang conclusion po ay yung word na in-instruct at saka yung word po na requirement po yung for payment. So in a way po, tama po na it is a requirement po na hindi po makakabayad ang PSDBM without this iCard because of the requirement po dun sa aming accounting system. Medyo technical po, accounting po kasi, yung accounting system po, bago ka po maka-effect ng payment, you have to set up a payable. Para po pag nagbayad ka, i-debit po yung payable and makikredit po yung cash. That is ano po yung system namin. So, para naman po ma-set up yung payable, our accounting system will require that inspection and acceptance report. Ang entry nung kasi, madedebit niya yung inventory, makikredit naman yung payable. So you will have a liability. So yun naman po yung siguro yung pinapaliwanag ni Mr. Mendoza na it was an accounting system requirement. So,
Mr. Catalan, do you think this is an act of falsification?
Your Honor, I'm not a lawyer, but what I understand is with this transaction, we did not, Mr. Mendoza did not falsify anything since naglagay naman po siya ng collateral there na it is just a pro forma invoice. And then the actual, I think, doon sa kanyang mga testimony po, sinasabi niya na may collateral sila that the actual inspection will happen once the goods arrives in the Philippines. Parang ganun po yung pagkakarinig.
Well, I have no further question, Mr. Chair, because my time is up, or I still have some questions rather. And let me refer this to the second round, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much.
You have 6 minutes, sir. 6 minutes.
I still have 6 minutes.
Yes.
I thought that was a warning that my time is running out. But anyway, let me continue, Mr. Chair. And my question is still with Director or the former Division Chief Raul Catalan. In line with my questioning on the ICARS, Mr. Catalan, did the USEC law instruct you to request or ask the Inspection Division to issue the said ICAR?
Your Honor, with due respect, ang pagkakaintindi ko po kasi sa tanong is do USEC law personally instructed me on this specific transaction? Ang sagot ko po dyan, Your Honor, ay hindi po on this specific transaction.
So what was USEC's law instruction at that time to you?
I think it is not an instruction individually to me, but an instruction to the whole office that there is a general directive po na we prioritize at that time yung mga procurement po para sa mga PPEs. Since at that time, when he was presiding the meeting, sinasabi niya na po yung mga frontliners natin yata ay hindi na pumupunta sa mga hospitals. Natatakot na po. At the same time po, sa opisina namin, nare-recall ko po yan na na-lockdown din yata ang opisina namin that time. So, staff were afraid of going to the office. Even po yung staff ng accounting division, mga naka-work from home na. Kaya po the meeting, nagkaroon ng directive doon that we give priority. And for the whole of office to assist para po ma-prioritize po itong mga procurement because of the urgency. Yun po yung masasabi ko.
Thank you, Mr. Catalan. In line with my questioning, Mr. Chair, let me direct my question to the former USEC, Lloyd Lau. Is he around, Mr. Chair?
Yes,
Present, Mr. Chair. I am here, Mr. Chair.
Now, Attorney Lau, was it unusual that an ICAR and payment were made ahead of the delivery and inspection?
In that circumstance, yes, it is unusual, Mr. Chairman, because the circumstances was also unusual. First, our office was designed primarily to operate under RA 9184. Our forms are under 9184. Our system is under 9184. Our programming, like FACT system, which is the program that we're using sa computer, is also under 9184. So when we were tasked during this time under Bayanihan Law, we had no time to make some changes as to the software, as to the system, the accounting system, payment system, inspection system, to adapt to the situation. We just have to do what we can do and make the best out of it. And during that time po, Mr. Chairman, since March 9, naghahanap na po talaga kami ng mga PPEs. When I say PPE, from face mask, face shield, N95, coverall, lab gown, apron, shoe cover, head cover, gloves, wala talaga kaming mahanap pati sa face shield. So, we had no choice using diplomatic channels to contact China. And the problem with China is everybody was going to China and only the Philippines was saying, ihatid niyo muna sa Pilipinas, i-inspect muna namin bago namin bayaran. And China does not know even PSDBM. So, businessmen in China would say, bayad muna kayo bago kami mag-deliver. So we had to coordinate with Embassy of China and the Philippine government to make arrangements kasi ang hirap nga nun. Pati nga sa Pilipinas hindi ka nga makapunta ng office kasi walang sasakyan. How much more Philippines to China? So it was very unusual circumstances po.
You said that it was an unusual method in answer to an extraordinary circumstance during that time wherein you cannot find any supplies of the PPEs. Now, my question is, did you reach or did you not reach the money of the government when you made advance payments prior to the delivery and inspection?
To answer that question, Mr. Chairman, that I think that time was on the first week of April. We had no choice but to make calculated risk. The word is calculated risk because it's a choice between waiting for China to open up its country and lift their lockdown and waiting for the Philippines to lift their lockdown. We don't know during that time kung aabot ba ng isang buwan, dalawang buwan during that time. Kung inantay namin yon, the problem was the doctors and the frontliners were already saying, we will stop going to the hospitals because we are dying. And Secretary Duque was already saying there might be a collapse in the health system. The Senate was already budgeting everybody na, nag-release na ng pera pero hindi pa rin kayo bumibili. We have to make a calculated choice. It's a calculated risk that we have to make. But despite making such risk, na nag-release kami ng bayad without seeing the items, we undertook measures to make sure that the money of the Philippines is protected because we coordinated with the Embassy of China, the government of China. In fact, bago kami nag-release ng bayad, nag-arrange muna kami sa China na, nandyan na ba sa warehouse yung mga gamit? Ready na ba ang Bureau of Quarantine and Bureau of Customs to inspect and to sanitize the items?
Mr. Lau, Mr.
Yes,
Lau,
po. I apologize.
how did you know, Mr. Lau, that it was with prior coordination between the Philippine government and the Chinese government?
We are aware that it is with prior arrangements and coordination with two governments, the Philippine government and Chinese government, because there were talks being discussed by the armed forces of the Philippines and the Chinese government for our government gray ships, which is the naval vessel, and our Air Force, which is the C-130, to land in China and to dock in China to get these items. In fact, during that time, we also discussed with the Bureau of Quarantine of China as to the quarantine measures to be adopted by Filipinos picking up the items in China. We also had discussion with the customs of China as to the tax implication of China and the tax implications of the Philippines. And as a matter of fact, I think the IATF, NTF, and the Secretary of Defense were the ones who were instructing the Philippine vessel and the Philippine C-130 to to actually make the travel to China with prior arrangements and go signal of the Chinese government, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, I know my time is up. Thank you, Mr. Lau, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'll release you for the second round, Congressman Garbin. Next to interpolate is Deputy Speaker Rodante Marcoleta. Sir, you have the floor.
Salamat po, Mr. Chair. My initial questions will be directed to Ms. Mago, Mr. Chair. Ms. Mago, good morning.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Binasa kanina, Ms. Mago, yung sulat mo sa House of Representatives. Nag-request ka ng protective custody. Narinig ko yung pangungusap mo doon. Sinasabi mo na gusto mo magkaroon ng voluntaryo at malayang pagpapahayag ng mga sagot mo. Kaya minabuti mong dito gawin yung pagtestigo mo. Tama ba yun?
Tama po yun, Your Honor.
At dito sa unang pangungusap mo ngayon na narinig ko rin, kinukonfirma mo na gusto mo magkaroon ka ng conducive environment na kung saan ay malaya mo ring masasagot yung mga bagay-bagay na may kinalaman dun sa kinasasangkutan mong anungan na nanggaling sa Blue Ribbon Committee. Tama ba yun?
Yes po, Your Honor.
Narinig ko yung mga pangungusap mo, pati yung nawala ka sandali off the radar because you needed to breathe. Mr. Chair, ito po'y nakakabahala sapagkat kapag alinmang chamber ng Congress ang mag-undertake ng investigation or formal inquiry in aid of legislation, hindi naman natin nilalagay sa ganong kalagayan ng mga testigo na ating tatanungin. Ito po, narinig ko nga, Mr. Chair, na in the last 2 months, sabi niya, was very particularly difficult for me, especially when it was exacerbated by the involvement in the ongoing investigations. At nakita ko kung paano siya halos lumuha nung sabihin niyang it was extremely traumatic to be accused of lying. Nababahala kami, Ms. Mago. Gusto naming alisin yung ganong klaseng environment. Ayaw namin na humarap ka sa amin na matatakot ka. It's like you're being intimidated. Gusto naming malaman kung sa ngayon, sa pagharap mo sa amin, ganun ba yung pakiramdam mo ba? O maluwag na ang dibdib mo, wala kang kinatatakutan, at malaya kang makapagsasabi, makasasagot sa mga itatanong namin?
Mas mayos na po yung pakiramdam ko na sumagot ng mga tanong ngayon, Your Honor.
At naniniwala ka sa pagharap mo sa amin, wala nang undue influence, wala nang traumatic experience. Pwede ba namin i-assume na okay ka na ngayon sa pagharap mo sa amin?
Yes po, Your Honor.
Kasi ayaw namin, narinig mo yung salita ng aming chairman, dito ang hinahanap lang, katotohanan lang. This committee never bludgeons or traumatize witnesses. Gusto namin malaya at voluntaryo ang pagsagot sa mga itatanong namin. Okay ba yun, Ms. Mago?
Yes po, Your Honor.
Meron ka kasing sinabing official statement dated 28 of September. Ano ba yung official statement na binabanggit mo dated September 28, 2021?
Opo, in summary po, ang nakalagay po dun ay nasa, hindi po ako nawawala o nagtatago. Nasa mayos po akong kalagayan, hindi rin po ako naka-receive ng threat mula sa Pharmally po.
Okay. Ang sinabi mo doon sa opening statement mo, the previous statement that Pharmally swindled the government was a pressured response. Did you say that in your opening statement?
Yes po, Your Honor.
Pwede bang paliwanag mo lang ng konti, ano ang ibig mong sabihin doon sa pressured response?
That time po kasi, you, talagang under pressure po ako na sumagot kasi ayoko rin naman po maging evasive. So, I was under the impression na kailangan ko sumagot directly. And ayun nga po, nabanggit ko po na wala po ako sa tamang, I was not in the best frame of mind to think clearly and wisely na mga isasagot. That's why I had to say yes po.
Why
Kasi-
were you under pressure?
Well, dahil nga din po sa intense na scrutiny ng investigation, as well as yung allegations po galing po dun sa video na ipinalabas po.
You're referring to the barrage of questions asked of you. It was actually, in my view, not an investigation in aid of legislation, but it seems to me it was an interrogation similar to the questioning employed by military establishment, law enforcement officers, even intelligence agencies or organized crime syndicates. These are the means employed in exacting information by said agencies and groups. Was this the kind of environment that you felt when you testified?
At that time, yes po, Your Honor.
Okay. I presume that this is the kind of environment you're feeling today. Am I correct?
Hindi naman po, Your Honor.
Ms. Mago, I reviewed personally the videotape when you were being asked by the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee. I am not sure what date is that, but I would refresh your memory on, I did not exactly capture the terms, but I think you will be able to recall them. There was a time when you were saying, like, I would have to watch the video again, but with regard to the changing of the stickers of the items, something like that. You were telling the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee that you needed to watch the video again because it has something to do with the changing of the stickers. Did you recall that?
Yes po, Your Honor.
Because you said this was a supply concern.
Yes po.
I got that. But while you were at it, another senator bludgeoned you and he said, confirm they were actually doing it. So without reference to what was being done at the time. And then you said again, that is something I cannot deny. Will you please tell us what was that something that you cannot deny in response to the question of that senator?
Opo, Mr. Chairman, nabanggit ko rin po sa aking opening statement na nagkaroon nga po ng mix-up ng mga product certificates kasi nga po minerge namin yung mga packs ng face shields na with broken quantities to form nga yung uniform 10 face shields per packaging. So, per packaging po kasi, isa lang yung product certificate na ilalagay. And as a result, yung mga ibang product certificates na discard na po.
So that was the kind of thing that you were referring when you said changing of the stickers. You were referring to the inconsistent packaging that you mentioned in your opening statement, because you needed to arrive at a packaging of 10 face shields in one package para maging consistent, sabi mo rito. And then you made reference to this na there were dates like April 2020 with expiry dates of 2 years, which is the same with April 2021 with expiry date of 2 years, meaning to say the two stickers mean the same thing. That the expiry date is 3 years. This is the one you are referring to, madam.
I'm not sure po dun sa mga details ng mga product certificates namin, Your Honor. But I do have to check po to clarify on this.
Hindi, ito yung binabasa mo, sinabi mo kanina. The production date of April 20 with the validity of 3 years. Okay? Whereas the new certificate has a production date of April 2021 with the validity of 24 months. So ang sabi mo rito, which is equivalent to 2 years. What you're saying here, pareho lang naman yon. Kahit pinagpalit, but you will arrive of the same dates. Is that what you're trying to say here?
In conclusion po, Your Honor, what I'm trying to say is that wala pong expired na face shields.
Yes, in saying that you change in the change of the stickers, walang nasakripisyo na validity or expiry dates. It was just a simple item of supply concern connected with the repacking of the face shields. That is what you're telling the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee at the time.
Yes po, Your Honor.
However, the senator butt in again, and he got on record something like this, placing on record only that they were switching the expiry dates. And so, makikita mo dito, you were referring to the changing of stickers, but the senator butt in and he supplied as if putting words into your mouth that you were switching the expiry dates. Did you recognize that?
At that time po, hindi ko po siya napansin that they were referring
So
to
hindi mo
expired date.
napansin na yung salita mo na changing the stickers was replaced by switching the expiry dates.
Hindi ko po siya napansin at that time.
Hindi mo napansin, pero yung sagot mo, sabi niya, Mr. Chair, I wanted to place on record that they were switching the expiry dates. Pagkatapos, tinanong ka ng chairman, is that true? That is something I cannot deny. Yun ang sinabi mo. Pagkatapos, tinanong ka uli, so you were swindling the government. At ang sagot mo, that is something I cannot deny. The series of questioning, like sabi niya before this, sinibasib ang pondo ng bayan. There's already a conclusion. Kung matino kang babae, sabi niya sa'yo, di ba? Did you hear that?
Opo.
Tinatanong ko lang naman, ganito. Mayayaman sila, may mga kotse. Kung matino kang babae, something like that. So all these things you felt. Sabi, at ang huli niyang tinanong sa'yo, pag tinanong pa kita, ngayon, baka mahulog ka na sa silya mo. These are the kinds of threatening and intimidating environment you were placed in. So, when you said that you swindled the government, with Pharmally, is this the one that you referred to in your opening statement? that that is a pressured statement? Do
Yes,
you like, do you want to explain this further?
yes po, Your Honor. Kasi given po the pressure that I was under at that time, also yung short amount of time na ibinigay sa akin to answer the question, and in consideration, ayoko rin naman po maging evasive sa pagsagot ng mga questions. What I considered at that time is nakapag-deliver na po kami partially sa DOH ng mga face shields. And yun po yung nag-prompt sa akin to answer, I believe. So kasi there is the fact na nasa warehouse na po siya ng DOH. But then again, after a few, after reviewing my statements po after the hearing, dun ko po na-realize na hindi ko na-consider yung fact na hindi pa po siya na-accept or inspect and accept ng DOH po. So yun po yung clarification na gusto kong ibigay.
Nung tinanong ka niya, so you swindled the government, you could have said, no sir, why did you not say that?
Ayun nga po, I was also under pressure. And what came to mind was, nagkaroon nga po ng partial delivery sa DOH. So, ayun po yung nag-prompt ng sagot ko, Your Honor.
You're saying that you were confused.
Yes po, Your Honor.
You were confused that somehow there was already a partial delivery. What has the partial delivery to do with the confusion, Ms. Mago?
Well, ito po kasing mga dineliver namin sa DOH contains the mixed product certificates nga po na in-explain ko sa aking opening remarks. So, there was that confusion po when I answered the question.
You said again, Ms. Mago, that, well, it was in your opening statement that you denied all the allegations made by the unidentified person who appeared in the video message presented by Senator Ontiveros. Was part of your opening statement. Do you confirm that?
Yes po, Your Honor.
What are those allegations made by the unidentified person?
From what I recall, Your Honor, the allegations included delivering damaged items sa government, like yung mga torn, dented, yung mga discolored na face shields, which hindi naman po totoo. And then there is also an allegation that we delivered substandard and expired face shields to the government. Hindi rin po yung totoo. And the unidentified witness also mentioned that we delivered substandard test kits to the government. Hindi rin po yung totoo, Your Honor.
Pero parang may tinanong sila na ikaw daw yung allegedly nagutos na palitan yung mga delivery dates or whatever, at meron kang sinagot something like, that is something I cannot deny. What explanations can you tell us in that regard?
Your Honor, I relayed the instructions from the management po to repack the stocks.
Not to change the delivery dates, but to?
Repack the stocks po, Your Honor.
But it made a different connotation to the members of the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee that that particular answer meant that you were instructed or ordered by higher management to change the delivery dates. And it even had the connotation that you deliberately changed the expiry dates. That was the inference that was communicated by that statement before the Blue Ribbon Committee. Can you explain that to erase the doubts?
Mr. Chairman, wala pong expired. na face shields. And ang instruction po na nirelay ko sa aming mga warehouse personnel is to repack po yung mga face shields namin into 10 pieces per packaging po. And then, nung ginagawa po nila yung repacking, nagsabi po sila sa akin na madaming product certificates, alin po dito yung ilalagay namin. So I told them to choose just one kasi isang product certificate lang po per packaging, Your Honor.
What is the significance of those certificates in regard to the presumption that or allegation that you change the delivery dates?
We never changed the
manufacture
production
date.
date or the manufacturing date, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, is there a connection between manufacturing dates and expiry dates?
Yes, but it shows the validity of the product po.
In your opening statement, you made an explanation of April 2020 and April 2021. Will you explain that, please, so that we can erase the doubts as to the allegation that there was a deliberate attempt to change the expiry dates?
Mr. Chairman, ang nangyari po is that there were a lot of product certificates in excess and our staff only had to choose one of those product certificates na ilalagay pa sa packaging. I never instructed them na piliin yung product certificate with a more recent production date. It was at their own discretion po na pumili ng product certificate na ilalagay po sa packaging, and we also checked yung validity po nung na nakalagay sa mga product certificates, and none of those were expired or near expiry po.
Yun na nga, yung gusto mong sabihin dito, kahit aling certificate ang gagamitin, that will not show that the certificates have been previously expired or the certificates previously expired.
Yes po, Your Honor.
Can you now tell us categorically that when you said or when you answered that that is something I cannot deny to the question whether or not Pharmally swindled the government, you were in a condition of extreme pressure
Yes po, Your Honor.
that, according to your own statement, you cannot think clearly because of the pressure that was exerted by the manner of questioning by the Blue Ribbon Committee.
Yes po, Your Honor.
Huwag kang matakot, Ms. Mago, because even the courts will allow a retraction, a repudiation of a previous statement made by any witness if these testimonies and statements were made under duress and under intimidating influence. So, sinasabi mo ba sa amin ngayon na kaya mo lang nasabi yon not only because you were not in your best frame of mind at that time because of undue pressure, of undue influence, because you were intimidated, because of the badgering? Ito ba yung gusto mong sabihin sa amin ngayon?
Yes po, Your Honor.
You were there when that unidentified person was introduced as a witness. You were there, right?
Yes po, Your Honor.
Did you see that person, whether or not he took his oath before he made those statements before the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee?
No po, Your Honor.
Mr. Chair, palagay ko, hindi nga siya pinasumpa dahil hindi naman binigay ang pangalan niya. Hindi siya makakasumpa simply because he was incognito. Dito kasi sa amin, hindi namin tatanggapin yun eh. We cannot accept the testimony of a person na ayaw magpakilala. At hindi naman susumpa kung sasabihin niya sa amin ay totoo o hindi. It's a waste of time. First of all, it's not admissible in evidence. Ms. Mago, nung ikaw ay unang imbitahan, inisip mo siguro na inimbitahan ka because you are a resource person. Somebody who can shed light to the questions that will be propounded on you, tama?
Tama po, Your Honor.
But you ended up being publicly humiliated. You ended up like you were an accused. Because sinasabi nga namin, it was not the proper investigation in aid of legislation as enunciated in the Constitution, but it was an interrogation. It was prosecution, actually. Did you notice that?
Yes po.
Alam mo, Miss Mago, maski yung mga police officers, kapag ka ikaw ay suspected, na-aresto ka, bibigyan ka pa rin ng tinatawag na Miranda warnings. Pwede nilang sabihin sa'yo, okay, you have the right to remain silent, you have the right to engage your own counsel, anything that you will say may be used against you in any court of law. When you place yourself in that interrogation before the Blue Ribbon Committee, meron ba nagsabi sa'yo na pwede mong sagutin yan, pwedeng hindi? Baka ma-incriminate ka. Did they tell you that?
Wala po.
Wala. Sinabi mo din, Ms. Mago, while you were testifying, you were tested positive with COVID-19. Is that true?
Yes po.
And because of the overwhelming pressure that you got and the intense scrutiny, it had a detrimental effect on your mental health. Is this correct?
Yes po, Your Honor.
Did you see a doctor?
I had no chance po.
Why did you say that it had a detrimental effect on your mental health? It's all right.
Opo. Well, when I was positive po for COVID, I manifested the signs and symptoms po, especially yung dry cough. And it gets worse every day. But I do inform naman po yung City Health Office. Nakakausap ko naman po sila every day and they monitor. And also, dahil nga po dun, nagkaroon ng decline in my physical health first. And then, ongoing nga din po yung mga investigations at that time. And especially the hearing last September 2021 at the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee po, I was really traumatized by what happened, and it really had a negative impact on my mental health po.
Thank you, Ms. Mago. I will now switch my questioning, Mr. Chair, to Yusek Lau, if he's still present.
Yusek Lau, please answer the questions.
Present, Mr. Chair.
Good morning, Yusek Lau.
Morning po, Mr. Chairman.
Did you have any chance hearing so far the testimony of Ms. Mago, who is now appearing before us.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
She experienced tremendous pressure.
As a lawyer, despite being a lawyer, I also experienced tremendous pressure, Mr. Chairman.
Notwithstanding the fact that you are a lawyer and probably trained in answering questions, but you yourself experience the same environment that she did. Am I correct to assume that?
That is precise, Mr. Chairman. In fact, I made a statement in the last hearing of the Congress, House of Representatives, and in the Senate that I felt that the testimonies elicited to my person during the time were under pressure, and I feel that the environment in the Senate was hostile, considering that the questions were very misleading and that being shouted and upon, first time in my life, being berated as to my person, as to my profession as a lawyer, as to my education, as to my character. In fact, even the family name which was passed on to me by my ancestors, which I shall pass on to my children, has been berated, being called as Lau. That's very hostile, Mr. Witness. It's my first time, even as a lawyer, that I've been treated that way.
So you share the sentiments of Ms. Mago.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, because before the Senate hearing started, I was even interviewed by a news agency, which I stated that the Senate and the House of Representatives hearing during the time, I was very interested in participating to shed light on the circumstances, but I never, in any of my wildest dream, would foresee how I will be treated in such a hearing, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. D.S. Marcoleta, your time is up. But Congressman Acosta Jr. of 3rd District of Palawan has yielded his time to you. So you have another 20 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to my colleague. Attorney Lau, I'm wondering why you did not go to the Supreme Court in order to protect you against the kind of harassment or intimidation or the undue influence. You were made to answer under duress. Sometimes you have been scolded. And like what you testified today, you have a recourse in the courts of law. I'd like to believe that you're familiar with the case of Bengson versus Senate Blue Ribbon Committee. Are you familiar with that case?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
And in that case, Yusek Lau, there were two petitioners. They were actually witnesses summoned by the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee to appear before them. But instead of testifying, they went to the Supreme Court via a petition for prohibition. And they succeeded. The Supreme Court ruled in their favor because it was decided that the inquiry was based only on the privileged speech of then Senator Juan Ponce Enrile, which did not contain any suggestion of a contemplated legislation. That is why the court ruled in favor of the petitioners, kaya hindi na sila tumistigo. Why did you not go to court and seek the same remedy?
Initially, Mr. Chairman, before the first hearing and before the second hearing of Senate, I was of the impression that the intention of the Senate investigation was in aid of legislation, and as one of the key personnels who handled the procurement of the PPEs and the test kits, it was wise that we could shed light on what should be done to make better measures for the succeeding procurement of the country. However, during the first hearing and the second hearing, things did not turn out the way we expected it to. We were treated and related after the second hearing. Yes, after the second hearing, Mr. Chairman, I wanted to go to the courts. However, when I was about to buy a ticket for Manila and make some arrangements there was already a statement released that I was planning to abscond the Philippine territory because I was in hiding. That prompted me to be concerned because if I ride the plane and arrive in Manila airport, I might be viewed or projected as planning to leave the Philippines, Your Honor. So, and I was also afraid that I will be arrested, Mr. Chairman.
But do you know that in the case of Ong versus Court of Appeals, GR number 132839, this is dated November 21, 2001. It says, the rules of procedure of the Senate and the rules of the Blue Ribbon Committee do not state that the Blue Ribbon Committee has the power to issue an order of arrest. Did you know about that?
I am not aware about that, Mr. Chairman, but I am very aware that I have the right to freedom of speech, right to liberty, right to privacy, Mr. Chairman. However, during the Senate investigation, I was threatened all the time by legislatures that I will be cited in contempt, that I will be sent to jail and detained, Your Honor.
Kaya nga, ngayon sinasabi ko na sa iyo, sinabi sa kasong ito that was decided by the Supreme Court, not even the rules of procedure of the Senate of the Philippines, including the rules of the Blue Ribbon Committee, wala silang power na mag-issue ng order of arrest. What they can do is to go to court and ask for an order of arrest. Ganon kasi ang sistema ng ating pamahalaan. Even the National Prosecution Service, kahit ng ating mga piskalya, hindi naman silang nagpapa-aresto. Not even the Department of Justice can do that. They will have to go to court and ask for an order of arrest. Ito maliwanag. Wala naman silang kapangyarihan na magpa-aresto ng tao. Hindi ko nga alam kung bakit meron silang na-detain ngayon, kung paano nila inaresto. Dapat sana ay gumawa ka na ng paraan, pumunta ka na sana sa korte, sapagkat ang nangyayari, hindi na nga in aid of legislation. Alam mo ba yung Attorney Lau, are you still there?
I am present, Mr. Chairman. Still here, Mr. Chairman.
Familiar with the case of Neri versus Senate Blue Ribbon Committee?
I'm not aware, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. In this case, pakinggan mo lang mabuti, ano? In this case, the Supreme Court held that the Senate's power of inquiry shall be used to obtain information in aid of legislation and not to gather evidence of a crime, which is essentially prosecutorial, not a legislative function. Sinabi pa niya ganito, no matter how noble the intentions of the respondent committees, in this case Blue Ribbon and other committees joining them, they cannot assume the power reposed upon our prosecutorial bodies and courts. The determination of who is or are liable for a crime or illegal activity, the determination of who should be hailed to court for prosecution, and the task of coming up with conclusions and findings of facts regarding anomalies, especially the determination of criminal guilt, are not functions of the Senate. Congress is neither a law enforcement nor a trial agency. Maliwanag ba sa iyo yun, Attorney Lau?
Very clear, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the education, Mr. Chairman.
Kasi ang Senado hindi isang prosecutor's office. Yan ay nasa province na ng National Prosecution Service natin. Kaya nga meron tayong NBI, meron tayong fiscal. At saka yung dapat malaman mo rin ito, you have the right to privacy. You have the right to invoke the right against self-incrimination. In the case of Ople versus Torres, 293 SCRA 141, the Supreme Court had the opportunity to discuss the independent constitutional right to privacy as explicitly recognized in Section 3, Paragraph 1 of our Bill of Rights, and its other facets in Section 1, Section 2, Section 6, and Section 8 of the Bill of Rights. Ito yung dapat ay tiningnan mong mabuti kesa naman pinayagan mo yung sarili mo na mag-isa ka doon. Sa tingin natin ay hindi na nga in aid of legislation. Pero pang isa, Yusek Lau, although it is an American jurisprudence, in Marshall versus Gordon, ito tandaan mo mabuti nagkataon lang naman na ganun na talagang case ito In Marshall versus Gordon, 243 US 521, 1916, it was held that congressional contempt power not expressly conferred by the Constitution was implied for efficiency and power, but not as a means for punishment of private matters. Did you understand that, Attorney Lau?
I understand that clearly, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And you should also be apprised of this. Under Section 18 of the Senate Rules of Procedures governing inquiries in aid of legislation, and under Section 6 of the Rules of the Blue Ribbon Committee, a vote of the majority of all members are required. Let me repeat that. A vote of the majority of all members are required in case of citing in contempt. Did you know that the Blue Ribbon Committee can cite you or anybody appearing before them with only two people agreeing? Number one, the chairman and any other member. And that is against their own rules. Did you notice that, Attorney Lau?
I noticed that, Mr. Chairman. It was repeated multiple times as a threat to my person.
Okay. Do you think sa ngayon na habang nagpapatuloy ang investigation sa Senado, meron na bang nakalap na evidence that any official or employee of PSDBM had anything to do with the kind of accusation or allegation that they have been getting in subjecting the employees of Pharmally into this prolonged questioning and inquiry? Meron na bang kasangkot na mga public officials, particularly with PSDBM?
None, Mr. Chairman. Despite 7 or 8 hearings already conducted by the Senate, there has been no established proof of that. Only insinuation, Mr. Chairman.
More particularly on the issue na may binabanggit sila na merong switching of certificates, merong switching of production dates. Did they in any way establish that any employee might have been involved? I mean, public employee or officials of PSDBM? Was there an indication that somebody conspired or aided or in cahoots with the kind of allegation that they are now trying to elicit in their prolonged and continuing investigation?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. The reason why I am asking these questions, because if you will review the rules of the Blue Ribbon Committee, sinasabi nila doon that in the course of their investigation, if they uncover evidence of misfeasance, malfeasance, and nonfeasance, they will refer it to the Ombudsman, to the DOJ, and any other investigative agency as the case may be. Kung totoo man, halimbawa, ipaghalimbawa na natin na meron na silang nakalap na ebidensya, all of them are saying that they have built up a strong evidence. O bakit naman hindi pa sila pumunta sa Ombudsman, Mr. Chair? O sa DOJ, sapagkat nandun naman sa kanilang tuntunin yun. Hindi nila ginagawa because they are building up a case, Attorney Lau. That is going beyond formal inquiry and investigation in aid of legislation. Investigations cannot be done to build up a case. This is the province of the prosecution service of our government. Do you understand that, Attorney Lau?
I understand fully, Mr. Chairman. That's how I was also educated in law school, Mr. Chairman.
Yun na, kaya nga sa iyo ko particularly sinasabi ito, sayang naman kasi kabisado mo yung batas, abogado ka naman, para hindi ka na sana na-traumatize kagaya ni Miss Mago. Si Miss Mago, we can understand na na-traumatize siya, hindi man siya preparado sa ganito, lalong-lalo na kung pagtatanungin mo naman sa environment na parang nananakot ka pa, mahirap talaga yun. Kahit tayo, mga lalaki na nga eh. Kung,
Diaz Marcoleta, your time is up, but Congressman Ebgas gave his 20 minutes to you, so you have until 1 o'clock, 1:05.
Salamat po, Congressman Ebgas. Bagamat hindi na rin siguro masyadong magtatagal ang pagtatanong ko, pero salamat din po at binigyan pa niyo ako ng pagkakataon. Yun nga, ang sinasabi ko, Mr. Chair, tayo, kahit malaki na tayo, lalo na po kayo, Mr. Chair, talagang malaki naman ang bulas nyo, lalaki naman kayo talaga, may hirapan din tayo kung hindi mapaghandaan naman, hindi ibigay sa atin ang kondisyon na kung saan malaya at voluntaryo tayong makapagsasalita. If the environment was concocted in such a way that they will be able to extract from you any information even under duress or even under undue influence. Napakahirap naman po, kagaya ng nangyari kay Miss Mago na sunod-sunod na pagtatanong. Miss Mago, can I go back to you? What is the difference between our way of questioning, our way of extracting answers from you, compared to the manner of questioning and the conditions under which you were placed when you appeared before the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee?
Your Honor, personally po, from my experience,
Pwedeng pakilakas mo, ma'am?
Apo. Personally po, from my experience, Your Honor, dito po sa House of Representatives, ang questions is isa-isa lang po. Tapos pinapakinggan po kami, pinapatapos po kami sa aming mga sagot. And although strict din po yung investigation, wala pong atmosphere of pressure, and also wala rin sumasabat during the time na sumasagot kami per question po, Your Honor.
Pwede naming i-assume dito, Ms. Mago, na yung isinagot mo sa amin, voluntaryo. Walang halong pananakot na ibigay mo ng malaya. Hindi kagaya nung ikaw ay tinanong sa kabilang chamber na kung saan pati sagot mo, sabi mo nga dito, is a pressured response.
Yes po, Your Honor.
Importante kasi sa atin yon, Ms. Mago, sapagkat ang ating mga batas ay talagang pinoproteksyonan ang lahat ng tao makapagbigay ng malaya, totohanan, at walang kapaimbabawan na sagot. Sapagkat ang ating pinag-uusapan ngayon ay may kinalaman hindi lamang sa pondo ng ating pamahalaan, kundi may kinalaman na rin doon sa katotohanan na gustong malaman ng ating mga kababayan. Ang pagsasagawa kasi ng ganitong uri ng inquiry, Ms. Magos, para sa inyo na rin kaalaman, 4 na bahagi kasi ito eh. Formal inquiries and investigation in Congress, in either chamber, can be done and for purposes of number 1, in aid of legislation, kasi maaaring ang sagot na makuha namin sa iyo makatutulong sa amin sa pagbabalangkas ng mga batas na makakabuti sa atin. Pangalawa, yung oversight function na kung saan ay tinitingnan namin kung yung implementation ng batas na ginawa namin ay nagagawa sa maayos at naayon doon sa objectives. Pangalawa, yung constituent function, sapagkat meron din kaming pananagutan sa mga constituents na nag-aakala na ang aming ginagawa ay para rin sa kanilang interest. At yung pang-apat, yung tinatawag nating teaching function. Sapagkat umaasa ang kabuuang mamamayan ng ating bansa makaalam ng totoo. Importante kasi na dapat kung ano yung lumabas, yung totoo lang. Narinig mo yung sinabi ng chairman namin. We are only in search for truth. Ironically kasi, Ms. Mago, kung titingnan mo yung Blue Ribbon Committee, meron silang insignia doon eh. Isa sa nakasulat doon, aside from the word Blue Ribbon Committee, ay yung salitang Latin yun, Mr. Chair eh. Whatever. Pero pag tin-translate mo sa English yun, Madam Ms. Mago, and the truth shall set you free. Yun naman ang totoo. Yun ang hinahanap natin eh. Kaya ka pumunta rito, ang aming assumption, and that was the expectation, the chairman of this committee, is for the truth to set us free. Did you understand that?
Yes po, Your Honor. Thank you for that information din po.
Mr. Chair, salamat po.
Thank you, Congressman Marcoleta. Is Lincoln Ong present? Hello, Lincoln. Mr. Lincoln Ong.
Yes po, Mr. Chairman. Present po.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I am Ferdinand Topacio. I am representing Mr. Lincoln Ong. May I be allowed to make a few words, Mr. Chairman, please?
You have been advised you cannot address the committee directly. You can only advise your client, Mr. Lincoln Ong, sir.
Sir, if I may, if with the kind permission of the chairman and the committee, I wish to manifest that there is no way I can advise my client, Your Honors, at this point because his a phone has been taken away from him by the Senate. So that is the only concern I wish to bring before this honorable committee, Your Honors. Not that I want to speak directly to the committee. I apologize if I have breached any rules of the committee, but there is no other way since we are on Zoom for me to relay this information to the committee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
According to Section 13 of the Rules of the House of Representatives, Paragraph 4, sir, you are only limited to advising your client and you cannot participate in the hearing directly.
Yes, Your Honor, I am aware of that. In that case, Your Honor, since I cannot communicate with my client directly, may I address him instead, Your Honor, considering that I'm not physically present?
You can address you can address him now.
Yes, Your Honor, I have been advised in the Senate, Your Honors, we have formally written Senator Richard Gordon, in his capacity as chairman of the Blue Ribbon Committee, that my client no longer wishes to participate in any further proceedings, Your Honor. Yesterday or the day before, my co-counsel, Attorney Don Rico Capunan, met with Mr. Ong in order to obtain his sentiments with respect to this hearing. And it was relayed to me by Attorney Capunan, and he's here present to affirm my statement, that Mr. Ong has also signified that, if only to be fair to the Senate, he wishes to be excused, although if there are reasonable questions to be propounded by the committee, is more than willing to answer them, Your Honor. That is all that I wish to manifest. Again, my apologies for taxing the patience of the committee and taking its time. Thank you, Your Honors.
Thank you. Mr. Lincoln Ong, are you here?
Yes po, Mr. Chairman. Magandang hapon po.
Magandang hapon. Mr. Lincoln Ong, during the course of your contracts with the government, how often would you and Mr. Wang Zhuyan speak to each other?
Mr. Chairman, I think we always discuss the projects as a group, as a board. So we talk to each other very often.
Every day?
I can say that as a group.
How is it that despite being in the same company, you are both on record providing contradicting and inconsistent statements?
Mr. Chairman, I don't think we are contradicting ourselves among the board. Baka there's some misunderstanding, probably, Mr. Chairman.
With the funding from Mr. Michael Yang, what is your final take on that? Because this is our last hearing, I want to know the whole truth. What is the participation of Michael Yang in your company?
Mr. Chairman, allow me to clarify. We indeed seek for financial help or assistance or whatever we can call it kay Mr. Michael Yang. And then, true enough, he was able to help us to secure the goods and bring the goods here dito sa Pilipinas. Landed talaga siya. So, in our perspective, kung ano mang gustong angulo ni Mr. Yang, mayroon po kaming obligation kay Mr. Yang. So, kung tawaging utang man yan or loan man yan, para sa akin hindi po importante. Para sa akin po is tinulungan po kami para maiparating yung mga goods. Meron po kami obligation na kailangan bayaran. Yun po yung sa side ko po.
Di ba before ikong translator ni Mr. Yang?
Yes po, Mr. Chairman.
How many years?
If my memory serves me right, it's starting at the end of 2016 until end of 2019, Mr. Chairman.
Tapos ito ng Pharmally na pinasukan mo.
Mr. Chairman, accidental din tong this Pharmally na to eh. I was if Mr. Chairman allow me to further explain about my situation is umalis po ako. I decided to do something on my own. in the later part of 2019 because nabuntis ko po yung girlfriend ko. Ayun. So, gusto ko maghanap ng buhay. I wanna have a family. So, yun, wala na ako kay Mr. Michael Yang. And then, pumutok po yung Taal. And then we started to do some small business, you know, as a group. And then here comes the COVID situation. So ito po, diyan po nagsimula lahat yan, Mr. Chairman.
Oo nga. So hindi ka ba dami ni Mr. Michael yon? Are you a dummy for him?
Hindi po, Mr. Chairman. I have my pride. I'm a thinking individual, Mr. Chairman.
So, okay. Thank you, Mr. Lincoln Ong, for your statements. We will please be aware that this hearing is the last, so please do not log out until the final minute. Thank you. Mr. Wang Zhuyen, are you present?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm present.
Same question. How often do you talk to Mr. Lincoln Ong?
I think we any of the projects, if we are going to pursue any projects and the way to approach it, we will discuss together as a team within the board.
Okay. Why is it that despite that you talk often, you are both on record providing contradicting and inconsistent statements in your business dealings?
I think as explained in the first in that specific Senate hearing, it was I don't believe it was a contradicting statement. I think as if you notice the way that a Senate hearing is conducted, whenever we name a person, that person is brought up, scrutinized, and harassed in many ways. We name a supplier, the supplier is brought up, his supplier is brought up. I mean, we wish to shed the light with the truth, but the company name is already in the drain by what the Senate is doing. But if we're still young, we still want to do business, and by naming people, you would drag their name, drag anyone's name along the way, then it's very difficult. I think at that point in time, Lincoln was considering that he just does not want to implicate people who have helped him. And specifically in this case, Mr. Michael Young helped him with the financing because the company was not able to do that. Therefore, and I thought that I saw the hesitance in him, and therefore I quickly stood up and said to speak the truth, because despite the pressure that we might have from naming people, but it is necessary to speak the truth on that matter. So that's why I think there was a miscommunication and difference in our statement at that point in time.
You mentioned in the Senate hearings that Pharmally had a letter of credit amounting to 500 million with Union Bank around November 2020. You then later tried to amend this statement that it was not true after the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee brought up that Pharmally had more than 4 billion with Union Bank. Can you present to this committee substantive bank documents to prove your updated claim? Can you provide the committee document?
Mr. Chairman, as I've said in the Senate hearing, I did not have that source document with me. That I believed it was a letter of credit, but I was subsequently corrected by the bank that was a certificate of credit. And I'm willing to address that because I wasn't finance trained. So I may have spelled it wrongly and the definition of documents may not be as clear to me. However, I will state on record that we never used that letter of credit or that certificate of credit in name. But I can supply that original document for that certificate of credit to the...
So you did not use that certificate of credit?
We did not use that certificate of credit, no.
Why? Please explain to the committee why you only said to do so days after your original statement, and only when that you contested it.
I was in communication with the bank, to address that statement. However, I thought it was not in my place to just raise a point before being called by the chairman and questioned on this matter, and I was not given a chance to address that in another statement. And as soon as I'm aware of my my word of mistake in my choice of definition of that document, I immediately wrote a letter to address that to the bank, and then I was immediately at that same hearing. The moment Mr. Chairman Gordon questioned me on it, I was immediate to rectify that, because that is what it is, and I cannot change that.
So, what again is your nationality, Mr. Wang Juyen? Are you Singaporean, Taiwanese, or Chinese?
I'm Singaporean, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Are you a dummy for Michael Yang?
No, Mr. Chairman, I'm not a dummy for Michael Young or anyone.
What is his participation in your company?
Mr. Michael Young's participation is solely on the supply and financing side of certain projects. Not all projects, I need to repeat that. Not all projects are financed by him. Not all supplies came from him. For projects that are, I would say, big and require his expertise and relationships in the Chinese manufacturing side, we did seek help. And in Lincoln, on behalf of our company, seek help, and he did offer his help.
Thank you, Mr. Wang Juyen. Mr. Mohit Dargani, are you online?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Did you instruct the cell Grace Mago to change the manufacturing date on the face shields?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Additionally, it is alleged that warehouse workers were told to repack even the dented and dirty medical grade face shields. What can you say about this, that you ordered this to be done?
No, Mr. Chairman. No instructions were given except for the repacking of the inconsistently numbered face shields, and to make it into 10 face shields into one pack. That was the only instructions given.
Ms. Twinkle Dargani?
Present po, Mr. Chairman.
Are you aware as president, you are the president, right? You're the previous president, is that correct?
Yes, I was the previous president po.
Are you
I was
aware?
acting president.
Are you aware of your company's financial records and transactions as the president?
No po.
No. So are you just a figurehead or active president?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question, sir?
A figurehead. You're not an active president doing day-to-day.
Yes po, yes. I'm not part of daily operations po.
So you were just put in by your brother as an additional member of the board. Is that correct?
Yes po.
Thank you. Mr. Michael Yang?
Chairman.
Good afternoon, sir. Mr. Yang, since this is the last hearing, can you provide information on the so-called friends that you introduced to Pharmally that allegedly funded part of the contract awarded to the company? Can you, since this is the last hearing, we would need the information on the friends who if you don't want their names to be my personal guarantee that it will not come out of any document or report. We just need to know that legitimate friends.
好的，前曼，你刚说这些朋友确实不想给他们公众的这个信息，因为他们是生意人，也不想参与这些，因为他们是只有提供货物跟基金帮忙的，他们是生意人。到时候我私下会把名字给他们。
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Yang said that this businessman that he referred, they do not want their information to be disclosed to the public because they're businessmen po.
Yes, we will not. Please trust us. We will not divulge it to the public. The public, including nobody that is not part of the committee, will be given the names. We just want to know if these names are just made up by you or they are
他是想知道这些名字是不是你自己提供的，
existing.
或者是事实上的人名。
你刚说这些名字也是我提供的是事实的，中国这几个人他们有交代我们不能提供这些信息，因为他们生意人，他们有自己的。
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, these are actual people po, and these people when communicated with Mr. Yang and asked him not to disclose their information daw po.
I will have no option. I will propose in the committee that if you do not give it,
如果你提供了他
require
们，
subpoena
他们就会出一个传票嘛，或者我们私下提供给。
because this
我私下可以给他名字。
Okay. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Yang said that he can disclose it personally to you, the information po.
okay. I will give my cell phone number later or email to you through the committee secretariat. I thank you very much because this will help us in our findings. But I can assure you it will not be published even in
这些
the
不会对外公布嘛？这些。
你刚说我会去问对方一下，行，我会提供。
Okay. Yes, Mr. Chairman, he'll just he'll talk again to the parties po, and then we'll provide the information.
nothing more, just the names and their place of business. That's all.
Okay, 他只要名字和他们在哪里做生意。
好。
Okay. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Next to interpolate is the Honorable Johnny Pimentel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sound check lang. Do you hear me audio?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. We have had already 3 hearings regarding this subject matter, and I just would like again to refresh the minds of our colleagues and our resource persons on what we have found out so far. As I've said, the reason why we are having these hearings is to shed light on some issues, to clarify some issues. I might sound redundant again, but as I've said, this must be shown to the public of the facts that have been established so far. Number 1, it is very clear that there was no overpricing that has been done in this transaction. In the last hearing, I was able to ask the resource person coming from DTI, and she herself said that in March or April of 2020, they had a price monitoring because one of the basic functions of DTI or one of their mandate is to have a price monitoring in times of calamities and emergencies. At that time, Mr. Chair, we found out that the monitored price of face mask was 100 to 120. This time, marami siguro hindi maniniwala niyan, but at that time, the supply of face mask was very, very scarce. Alam naman po natin, ang presyo ng isang commodity, ang nagdidikta niyan ikangang law of supply and demand. Now, if you'll base the price of the face mask that Pharmally supplied, it was 27, I believe. So it is only 1/3 of the monitored price of DTI. So way, way below than the monitored price. It was also below the price ceiling set by DOH and DTI of 28 pesos per piece. And more than that, COA testified that actually there was no issue of overpricing that was contained in the report. It was not another, it was another issue. but not of overpricing. Number two, we were also able to establish that the procurement process that was undertaken by DBMPS was legal and above board. Yes, it did not conform with the requirements of Republic Act 9184, the Procurement Act, because the process that was followed in the procurement of funds in the Bayaning Act are exempted from Republic 9184. Therefore, the requirements or documents that are needed for the public bidding under Republic 9184 does not apply in the negotiated procurement emergency cases because there is a provision in Bayanihan 1 Act that it is exempted from 9184. Number three, we were also able to establish that all the goods were delivered and payment was made after delivery. This was answered, or rather the resource persons coming from DBMPS, from other agencies, testified that there are documents to prove that the goods were delivered and in fact were received by our frontliners. Number four, we also were able to find out that Pharmally did not actually corner the supplies that was funded under Bayanihan 1 Act because the suppliers for the PPE were 17 suppliers and the suppliers for the face masks were 8 suppliers. So out of 42 billion pesos, they were not able to corner the majority of the funds. Now on the fifth issue, which is more contentious, is with regard to the expiry date. Actually, we were able to hear from the testimony of resource persons coming from DOH and other agencies that all the face masks, all the face shields, all the PPE that were procured on April of 2020 were fully delivered, all accounted for, were received by our frontliners. Ngayon, tinanong ko si Secretary Duque at that time, Secretary, nagamit ho ba lahat nung sinupply nung Pharmally? Ang sabi po niya, nagamit naman lahat. So I believe that the expiry issue is not an issue actually. Kasi kung sabi natin expired yan, kagaya ng pagkain na namapapanis o canned goods na papanis, hindi na natin magagamit. So, in any transaction, tinatanong ng COA, nalugi ba ang gobyerno sa transaksyon na ito? Yun ang tanong natin. Hindi po nalugi ang gobyerno natin sa transaksyon na ito dahil nagamit naman lahat ng mga items that was procured under Bayanihan 1 Act. Now let us now proceed, or rather let me proceed now to my questioning or to my interpellation. Do I have a representative from RITM? Comsec? Comsec?
Yes, Your Honor.
Meron ba tayong resource person sa RITM?
Opo, we have Dr. Celia Carlos, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. For Dr. Celia Carlos, during the Senate hearing, one of the senators said na dapat daw 24 to 36 months ang shelf life ng COVID test kits. Totoo ba ito? Dr. Carlos?
In the first purchase request, sir, that was what we indicated under specifications. Expiry date of 24 to 36 months for extraction kits and 12 to 24 months for PCR kits. based on our experience of the use of such kits for testing other organisms.
Yung sinupply ho ba, ilan no ang shelf life nun?
I was not directly involved in the procurement process, but the information given to me was the expiry was within 6 months.
In spite of the expiry ng 6 months, well, accordingly, no? Kasi you were not privy to that, but according to your information, 6 months yung shelf life na sinupply na COVID test kits. Pero tinanggap pa rin po ng DOH o ng RITM yung kahit na 6 months yung shelf life, hindi po ba?
As far as I was informed, it was accepted.
Bakit po nyo tinanggap yun kahit na 6 months na lang ang shelf life?
Again po, based on the information from our technical staff, during the time, the PCR and the extraction kits specific for SARS-CoV-2 were very new, and therefore the manufacturers had no experience on the shelf life of these kits beyond 6 months. So the manufacturers could not indicate in their IFUs or information for users that the shelf life could be longer than 6 months based on the limited experience.
Okay, ang tanong ko po, Doktor, pero nagamit ba natin yung COVID test kits na sinupply kahit na ito 6 months lang ang shelf life? Nagamit ba natin lahat?
Again po, I was not privy to the operations because it was another DOH official who was in charge of the network. So it may be better if the appropriate person is asked.
Sino po ba ang appropriate person na dapat tanungin ko dito? Para I just want to establish that again, just like the expiry of the face shields or face mask rather, itong ginagawa nilang issue na dapat daw 24 to 36 months ang COVID test kits, kung nagamit naman natin lahat, kahit na 6 months na lang yung shelf life, pero kung nagamit natin lahat, wala pa rin logi ang gobyerno doon. Hindi po ba? So sino po ba ang pwede natin matanungin yan na kung nagamit ba lahat ng COVID test kits? Who's the right person?
The official po in charge of the COVID lab network is Assistant Secretary Santiago.
Anyway, but I'm sure kasi nagamit siguro yan dahil wala na po.
Presidency. Mr. Santiago is present.
Mr. Santiago is present. Okay, good. Mr. Santiago, can you answer my question? Mr. Santiago?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Opo. I'm here po.
Yes. Kasi tinatanong ko kay Dr. Carlos, no? Siguro nadinig mo naman kanina, kasi isang issue na lumalabas, dapat daw, sabi dun sa Senado, na ang shelf life ng COVID test kits is dapat 24 to 36 months. Pero yung sinupply po daw ng COVID test kits is only for 6 months. Ngayon, ang tanong ko, in spite na 6 months ba, nagamit ba lahat yung sinupply na COVID test kits?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Actually, according to the report, the test kits that is being questioned or the subject of inquiry was all utilized po. Wala pong nag-expired. And dagdagan ko lang po yung sinasabi ni Dr. Celia Carlos na during that time, and even this time po, 6 months po talaga yung expiration ng lahat na testing kits. Kasi nga po, it's a novel virus. So bago po siya. Kaya po, although ang nilagay kasi ng RITM is 24 months to 36 months. Kasi po, doon yan sa mga ibang pathogens or microorganism. Pero ito pong sa SARS-CoV-2 or the COVID, bago po ito. Kaya po, 6 months lang talaga yung shelf life ng mga test kits. Over to you, sir.
Bakit nag-i-insist ang Senado na kailangan daw 24 to 36 months?
Well, as explained po by Dr. Celia Carlos, kasi sila po yung National Reference Lab, doon po sa mga ibang pathogens or microorganisms before COVID times, yun po ang mga expiration dates ng mga test kits. Kaya po yun po ang nilagay doon sa specification during the procurement process. Over to you, sir.
But anyway, as we have now established, nagamit naman lahat yung mga COVID test kits, wala naman nag-expire nung paggamit natin. So in short, the objective of the government when they procured the items was completed or consummated. Now, thank you, Mr. Santiago. How many minutes do we still have, Comsec?
You have 7 minutes.
Tutuloy ko na lang ito kay Mon Abrea. Mr. Mon Abrea, are you on board?
I-excuse himself. Mukhang natakot kay DS Marcoleta.
Ganun po ba? May mga tanong sana ako kay Mr. Mon Abrea. Pero anyway, because he testified in the Senate about due diligence. Pero yung sinasabi niyang due diligence ng mga requirements is not required under the
Over na po ni DS Marcoleta in the last hearing na ano niya na po yan. Natanong niya na, na-establish na po.
Okay, so therefore, Mr. Chair, I have no further questions. Maybe I will reserve my other questions on the next round.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Vice Chair Johnny. Next to interpolate is the Honorable Joao Jimenez, the Mayor.
Yes, good morning. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Am I audible?
Yes, Congressman.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Narinig natin yung statement ni Ms. Mago and of course yung statement din kanina ni Attorney Lau on pressure. Siguro to begin with, may gusto lang din ako i-share sa committee. I recall in 2018, obviously hindi pa ako miyembro ng Kongreso noon, and we attended a committee hearing. And totoo yun, Mr. Chairman. Sobrang pressure, tensionado ka to appear before a committee. Kahit nga yung mga statement mo na babasahin mo na lang minsan, pag binabasa mo, kinakabahan ka pa rin. And pag may mga tanong ang mga magagalang na kongresista natin, talagang pressured ang isang resource person kasi hindi mo alam kung anong itatanong at paano mo sasagutin. Talagang mahirap po. Hindi ho ganun kadali na umapir at maging isang resource person sa mga committee hearings, especially pag may investigasyon na ginagawa, whether it's the House of Representatives or the Senate. Recall, Mr. Chairman, at the start of our hearing, sinabi ko na po na sana lang kung may mga ebidensya man, ituloy na ang pag-file ng kaso. Dalhin na ito sa korte o sa ombudsman ba. Sabi ko nga, mahirap kung gawin natin trial by publicity kasi kung sa trial by publicity, ang nagiging issue po is that you are presumed guilty until you are able to prove your innocence. So kaya iniiwasan natin lahat ang trial by publicity at ayaw natin mangyari ito kahit kanino man. Ngayong araw na to could be our last hearing, Mr. Chairman, and talagang binibigyang halaga ang salitang the truth will set us free. I hope, Mr. Chairman, sa mga kababayan natin nakikinig sa hearing na ito, tama po yung magiging statement na yun. The truth will set us free. Hindi yung what is the convenient truth. Kasi sa isang convenient truth, maniniwala tayo sa katotohanan, depende sa rason na gusto natin. Pwedeng naniniwala tayo sa katotohanan na tinatawag na convenient truth para lang makasira ng kapwa. And nakikita natin ang sincerity ni Ms. Mago and of course si Attorney Lau, if I'm not mistaken, they're close to shedding tears before the committee. Yung pinagdadaanan nila, I would naintindihan ko si Miss Mago sa pressure na dinaanan niya. Siguro talagang hindi rin maintindihan lahat ng tanong na binabato sa kanya, lalo na kung sabay-sabay nagsasalita at sabay-sabay ang mga tanong na binabato sa kanya. At to Attorney Lau, a very young lawyer who is with the government, I hope yung mga batang professionals na nakikita yung hearing natin, napapanood yung hearing natin, hindi sila madi-discourage na pumasok sa gobyerno. And I'm glad, Mr. Chairman, that our committee, under your leadership, of course, we are here to determine really what is the truth. And base sa rason kung bakit tayo nagkaroon ng committee hearing, motu proprio hearing, una, tignan ba kung tama ang naging transfer ng isang account ng pondo from one agency to another. And of course, yung issue na sinasabi ng iba na may overpricing issue na to sa usaping ito. Malinaw naman ang naging sagot ng mga resource person natin ukol sa mga rason kung bakit tayo nagkaroon ng committee hearing. First question, I'm sorry na babalikan ko itong tanong, Mr. Chairman, but perhaps to Attorney Lau, if he's still there, ang unang tanong ko, Mr. Chairman, when we purchase yes, Attorney Lau, nung bang binili natin ang mga face shield, especially base nga sa opening statement kanina ni Ms. Mago, these are non-medical non-medical grade face shields. Ano ba ang specifications ng ni-require ng gobyerno natin? Is it required na 36 months ang shelf life nito, o 12 months, o 24 months, o 6 months?
Hindi po ako aware dun sa non-medical grade face shield because PSDBM was not tasked by DOH to buy non-medical face shield. I think the testimony of Ms. Mago refers to a direct procurement by DOH for non-medical use. But yung as far as PSDBM, I think medical face shield, ang makakasagot niya, nasa APR kasi ng DOH na pinadala sa amin. Usually, 24 months ang warranty. I think the best persons to answer that is yung personnel sa PSDBM ngayon. Sila ang may alam. I think it's 24 months po. But I'm not sure because I don't have documents.
So just to confirm the statement, yes, may I be referred to the Department of Health, Mr. Chairman, or any representative from the Department of Health?
Representative of DOH since Secretary Duque is not here.
Mr. Chairman, please recognize me. This is Yusek Leopoldo Vega po, representing.
Hello, Yusek Vega. Yes. Please answer the questions of Congressman Jimenez.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, the question is, as far as the purchase of the non-medical grade face shields are concerned, ano ba ang required shelf life natin? Is it 36 months, 24 months, 12 months, or 6 months po?
As what has been stated by Secretary Duque, it is 36 months, Your Honor, Mr. Chairman, because of the foam that is used to buttress the face shields, Your Honor, the shelf life of that face shield.
Though yung sinasabi nyo po, you're referring to medical grade face shields.
No, Mr. Chairman, I'm referring to the face shields with foams, which is actually the shelf life of the foams that is being considered, Mr. Chairman.
So yung may foam, yun ang medical grade face shields.
I cannot specify on that, Mr. Chairman, whether this is the medical grade or not.
Anyway, basta po ang issue is that 36 months ang shelf life. This has been very clear to all of us. I think starting from our lalo na nung third committee hearing natin. I'm raising this point, Mr. Chairman, because I really hate to make a comparison of the hearings conducted by both houses, by the House of Representatives and by the Senate of the Republic of the Philippines. But if you look at it, Mr. Chairman, yung issue na tinatawag na the company swindled the government dahil daw po pinalitan ang production date, if I'm not mistaken, from 2020 at ginawang 2021. Doon ho nagkaroon ng issue na sinasabi ng iba may swindling na ginawa sa gobyerno. So ang tanong ko, kung ang shelf life naman niya is 36 months, whether or not you change it from the year 2020 production date to year 2021, pareho naman ho pasok siya sa shelf life na required of 36 months. So, or 3 years. So whether you change, for example, the production date from 2020 to 2021, 2021 pa rin tayo ngayon. So it is still within the 3-year period na request ng DOH for shelf life ng mga face shields natin. So this is no longer a question, but sana po nakikita ng taong bayan natin na kung ano man ang magiging issue sa pagpalit ng production date, hindi naman to magiging resulta is expired na po ang face shields na binigay ng gobyerno sa atin. That is my humble opinion on the matter. Kahit napalitan, in fact, questionable pa nga sa atin ngayon kung napalitan nga ba talaga, because as stated, I'm basing my manifestation on the statement made by Ms. Mago. Kahit napalitan man yan, but it was based on a testimony given by a person na hindi man lang pinakilala sa taong bayan kung sino nagsasalita. In fact, covered pa nga yung mukha nung so-called witness, so-called empleyado din ng Pharmally, na his face was covered by a face mask and naka shades pa siya. So ang palagi nga sinasabi ng mga eksperto sa atin, pag hindi natin makikita ang mata ng isang witness habang ito'y nagsasalita, mahirapan tayong makita, lalo na sa mata niya, kung ang katotohanan ba ang sinasabi ng taong nagbigay ng ganitong testimonya. I will have a question to Ms. Mago, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Mago, please answer.
Ms. Mago, narinig natin ang inyong statement at the start of this hearing. Sabi nyo, you're pressured, you're traumatized by everything, including yung cellphone number nyo na ilabas at nalaman ng publiko. Siguro pati address nyo po nalaman din ng publiko. As we would expect, sa opening statement ninyo, ang sasabihin ng iba is that nagbago kayo ng statement or you recanted your previous statement made in a separate investigation in another sa ibang with the Senate of the Republic of the Philippines. Yun ang magiging headline, kumbaga headline story nito after our hearing. Ang tanong ko lang, Ms. Mago, why are you doing this? I mean, bakit, as you're saying, sa tindi ng pressure from all sources, from various sources na you're feeling right now, and I'm sure hanggang ngayon, you feel the pressure, you feel the pain, you feel talagang traumatic tong experience na to. But why are you doing this? I would suppose you're doing this to really tell the truth sa kababayan natin, para sabihin talaga kung ano bang katotohanan sa mga kababayan natin. Why are you doing this, Ms. Mago?
Mr. Chairman, I'm doing this to tell the truth. Yun lang po.
And I'm sure yung katotohanan na sinasabi niyo po, mas marami pang tanong ang mangyayari sa inyo po. Sabi ko nga, pwedeng ma-cite kayo for contempt, pwedeng kasuhan kayo for perjury. Are you aware of that, Ms. Mago?
Yes po, Mr. Chairman.
And despite all this, you still want to tell the truth sa mga kababayan natin.
Yes po, Mr. Chairman.
What is the truth, Ms. Mago?
It was in my opening statement, and this is also supported by an affidavit po.
Yes, we heard your statement. And ulitin ko lang yung tanong kanina ha, Mr. Chairman, forgive me for doing this. But
Congressman Jimenez, for the record, Ms. Krizle Grace Mago submitted an affidavit. We will enter it to our committee records, and I direct the COMSEC to include that in our records to give to our members. Thank you.
yes, Mr. Chairman, in fact, after Ms. Mago gave her opening statement, I immediately, not immediately actually, but I immediately asked our COMSEC to give us a copy of the opening statement of Ms. Mago, and the COMSEC was kind enough to immediately send us a copy of the statement by way of a Viber message, Mr. Chairman. So, meron po tayong kopya nun. So, ang tanong ko, kanina, tinanong to kanina, but I would like to make this on record and to be clear to the public, Mr. Chairman. To Ms. Mago, bago kayo nagsalita sa isang hearing sa Senate of the Republic of the Philippines, may nagsalita noon, a person that you call in your opening statement na by an unidentified person who appeared in a video presented by Senator Risa Hontiveros. Kahit sa boses ba, Ms. Mago, nakilala niyo yung taong yun, even from his voice, from his demeanor, kung paano siya kumilos, magsalita, paano yung shape ng ulo niya, paano yung itsura niya kahit nakatakip ng mask o nakashade siya. Are you familiar with that person, Ms. Mago?
Mr. Chairman, I believe the voice was altered. Also, yung physical features niya was hidden, so it was hard for us to identify the witness.
Was it made clear to everybody, especially to you during the committee, because you were asked to corroborate, parang sort of corroborate the testimony made by the masked man, yun na lang itawag ko sa kanya, by the masked man. Were you ever informed na of that scenario na may magsasalita by way of a video presentation, and possibly nabanggit ba sa inyo kung sino yung taong yun?
Wala pong information na ibinigay sa amin, Mr. Chairman.
I'm raising this point, Mr. Chairman, because I will admit on record that prior to being elected as a member of the House in 2019, it's my first term in Congress, by the way, Mr. Chair, I have been a fan really of watching, especially Senate investigations. Siguro beginning in my college days, talagang nanonood ako ng mga hearings sa Senado. And talagang we learn a lot from those hearings. But if I'm not mistaken, this could be the first time na, I'm sorry to say this could be the first time na may nagsalita na hindi nakita ng taong bayan sino yung nagsasalita. And to me, it would be unfair, Mr. Chairman, because if we are out to know the truth, siguro dapat talaga makita ng taong bayan yun. At kung sasabihin naman natin ang totoo at kaya naman natin protektahan ang mga testigo, mga witness, mga resource persons natin, hindi na ho siguro kailangan itago pa ang kanilang identity. Kahit pangalan siguro, dapat nalaman natin so that yung committee din natin na imbitahan natin to appear also before our hearing, Mr. Chairman. So I'm done with Ms. Mago, Mr. Chairman. Just a manifestation by way of an inquiry. You mentioned, Mr. Chair, that today is the last hearing relative to this purpose, but I'm just concerned as to the situation, or let me say it, I'm concerned with the safety of Ms. Mago. Just to be clear on the record, para maging klaro din sa taong bayan, even after our hearing will be terminated today, I would presume that Ms. Mago will still be under the care and custody of the House of Representatives, Mr. Chairman?
As I said, the House of Representatives is the House of the people, and the Speaker approved an interim period of 2 months for her stay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For this round, I have no further question, Mr. Chair. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Congressman Jimenez. Next to interpolate is the Honorable Ferdinand Gaite of Party List Bayan Muna.
Salamat po, Mr. Chair. There's a 3-5 sa ating kasama sa good government. Din sa ating mga kasama ng kapita-pitaga, mga pinutawan sa Krizle, isang magandang call to our sa afternoon, isang magandang afternoon. May ilang katanungan lang po ko na i-raise, no? At may manifestation din po ako na itong ihayag, hindi lang sa itong ginagawa po nating pagdinig sa findings ng Commission Audit sa 2020 sa utilization ng Department of Health budget for 2020. Rates na nga yung 42 billion pesos transferred to PSDBM for the entitled po ng ating bill ay motor transportation for the alleged overpricing. And I've heard in so many instances
Congressman Gaite, your signal is not loud and clear.
Thank you. Yan po, mas malakas po ba yan ngayon?
Yan, kailangan mo idikit yan para
Pasensya na. Pasensya na po. Sige, I'll try to attach it to my... Yeah. Salamat po. So, lumalabas po na ang narinig ko pong ulit na claim ay hindi na patunayan yung usapin ng overpricing. But I would just like to make a point, no, na in our investigation of the committee, we are trying to verify whether despite yung sinasabi nga pong na-exempt ang emergency procurement na ito dahil nga sa COVID, yung declaration doon sa Bayanihan 1 na ma-exempt ang procurement dahil nga sa emergency situation, despite the fact, by the way, Mr. Chair, that there were already existing provisions in RA 9184 regarding yung conditions where there is a need for emergency procurement negotiated contracts, especially in these times. It was already foreseen, no? Nakita na po doon sa batas, and yet pinili na i-suspend nga o i-exempt yung procurement during this emergency situation. Pero naniniwala ko there were enough provisions within the procurement law to prevent nga itong mga nagiging problema ang hinaharap natin ngayon. And again, I would like to get this statement from the PSDBM, Mr. Chair, doon sa ABC na binabanggit, no? For the example, wag na tayo masyadong lumayo. Ito yung controversial na face masks. Sinabi nyo, tama po ba, that the bid, the bid price did not exceed the ABC? Let me get a clarification. Specifically for the face mask, hindi ba nag-exceed yung requirement doon sa procurement ng face mask doon sa tinatawag na ABC, Mr. Chair? O kung ginamit pa man yung basis na yon? Kasi normally...
Answer.
Yes, Mr. Chair, can it is addressed to the PSDBM?
To present, Sir Jonas. Jonas, Director of PSDBM.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. In deference to our OIC Executive Director, if he is here, Attorney Jason Wayan, I can defer to his response. If not, I can answer the question of the good Congressman.
Attorney Liwayan.
Mr. Chairman, before I answer that question, I would like to manifest that I have yet to take my oath.
Okay, please stand up and prepare to take the oath. Comsec.
Attorney Wayan, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth before this congressional inquiry? So help you God.
Yes, I promise to tell the whole truth.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, do I have to repeat the question?
Mr. Chairman, would like clarification. Is the question is in reference to the first procurement made specifically for surgical masks?
No, I was commenting on the face mask, the controversial face masks. Yung binabanggit, meron ho bang approved budget contract for the first procurement that was mentioned by Yusek Lau regarding the procurement? Ito nga, no? May ginamit pa kayong ABC, approved budget contract? Because that will be the contentious issue whether sinasabi nga kung overpriced o hindi. Kasi lumalabas, ito na yung isa among others na pamantayan whether there was actually overpriced. Kasi, di ba, sabi ng GPPB, kapag lagpas na doon sa bid ng supplier, hindi na responsive yung bidding. So you're saying that responsive yung bidding nila because, tama ba? Yung kanilang bid price was below the approved budget contract specifically for the face mask, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, with respect to the face mask, I believe that was the quantity at that time was around 500,000 pieces with an SRP of around 28 pesos per piece po. So with
Mr. Chair, I have limited time. I'm asking if they were using an average budget approved budget contract.
Mr. Gaite, Congressman Gaite, I think the ABC, if I'm not mistaken, my limited knowledge of 9184 is for only infrastructure projects. Is that correct, Mr. Executive Director?
No, Mr. Chairman. What the good congressman is referring to is the ABC set for the face mask, which at that time was around 500,000 pieces times 28. That would be around 14 million, if I'm not mistaken.
14 million. So that was am I right? That was the ABC.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that is correct.
So you are saying responsive yung bid ng Pharmally, Mr. Chair?
I'm saying, Mr. Chairman, that Pharmally offered a price lower than the ABC, which is at 27.72 per piece.
Thank you. Is that the only basis kahit na it's below the ABC? So is that the only basis in awarding, Mr. Chair?
Mr. Chairman, that's one of the basis. The other basis is the earliest delivery or the schedule offered by the supplier.
Thank you. And another one is the lowest calculated bid. Is that right, Mr. Chair?
Mr. Chairman, in this instance, there is no lowest calculated bid since it does not fall under the case of competitive public bidding.
Mr. Chair, you said before that there were other suppliers. Tama po ba?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Chair, merong ibang suppliers. Tama po ba?
I believe, Mr. Chairman, that we sent out requests for quotations at that time.
Okay, pakisagot na lang po. Were there other suppliers para mabilis po?
Yes, there were other suppliers, but it was not responsive.
Medyo nagugulan ako sa sagot nyo kasi I believe there were other bidders who were supplying at much lower prices.
No, Mr. Chairman, based on our records, there were no other supplier offering.
I suggest the good chair, Mr. Chair, i-validate nyo ulit yan because I understand there were other suppliers who were proposing lower than what was Pharmally was presenting, which is why sabi I'd like to make this point now, hindi lamang po yung issue ng overpricing, kung hindi dapat mag-comply rin doon sa lowest bid evaluation na ginagawa, yung lowest calculated and responsive bid. And I asked this already and hinihingi ko nga yung supply inventory, yung lahat ng mga nag-bid nung panahon na yon. And gusto natin ma-validate kung totoo ba merong existing need for this dahil mababa na nga inventaryo, kailangan meron na kayong stocking levels para malaman kung kailan yung ordering period, ilan yung volume. Dahil alam niyo naman, tama, no? Dahil nga pandemic, may mga sinasabi kayong shortage. But still, dapat nga meron kayong plan, no? Paano yung procurement plan nyo. So, balikan nyo po kasi huli ko nakita, there were suppliers who claim to be able to supply said PPEs, specifically face masks, and yet sa halip na ma-award sa kanila using the lowest calculated bid, apparently hindi yun ang nangyari. Kaya po medyo medyo hindi ko naintindihan yung binabanggit yung hindi responsive yung bid sila. Mr. Chairman, regarding this.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Lau.
May I ask for a copy of those companies that are being stated now as lower pricing offer as of March 25 and March 24 so we can validate and address the issue at hand right now, Mr. Chairman? Kasi as far as our records is concerned, there are no other suppliers during that time. I think, Mr. Chairman...
Mr. Chair, kayo nga dapat siguro mag-supply ng information kasi nasa inyo yung records.
Yeah, that's why...
I do not know why binabaliktad nyo na kami yung magsusupply. Kayo ang keepers of the records. So, as I understand, there was these companies, EMS, sino pa yung iba, that were able to, there was a company, I think, in Bataan also, who were ready to supply.
Can you provide the names of those who bidded and dictate the price during the bids on March for the face mask? Can you dictate now the company and their bid?
Wait, Mr. Chairman.
Please dictate the companies that bidded and their price per piece.
Mr. Chairman, for the first procurement of the surgical mask, we have four suppliers. First is the Philippine Blue Cross, offering it at 28. The second supplier is Mac Tycoon, also offering it at 28 pesos. The third supplier, we got it from the online research. It states that the price was 40. And we have, and a Pharmally, Mr. Chairman, 27.72.
Mr. Chair. Well, based on the um, efforts of the PSDBM to source suppliers, I think that concern was already raised during the Senate hearing. Kaya nga lumalabas nga po ng Pharmally, which actually bought their supplies from other suppliers, hindi sila yung actual producers, nakita nga na meron pa nga mas mababa. I think that that concern was raised that very limited yung ginawa ng PSDBM in sourcing the suppliers who could provide a lower price to the required PPEs, Mr. Chair. So, I will now proceed to my next question. I have limited time regarding the Department of Health kasi ito yung parang isang mahalagang usapin, no? Bakit nalipat sa PSDBM ang sinasabing procurement, no? Considering that Department of Health, even before the pandemic, has been through their procurement service, has been procuring the supplies, materials, equipment of the Department of Health. Okay. Tanong ko nga po ngayon sa Department of Health.
5 minutes.
Salamat po. Nabanggit nyo po na ano ba itong nabanggit ni Secretary Duque na yung procurement service was overwhelmed. Ilan ho ba empleyado ng procurement service? Can I get some information from the Department of Health?
Plantilla nila, sir.
Nationally.
USEC of DOH.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the procurement services in the Department of Health, I think, consists only of 5 teams. That's the central office, Mr. Chairman.
So how many people is 5 teams?
5 teams is equivalent to five people per team, Your Honor.
So 25.
Yes, Your Honor. That's in the central office, not counting the different operating units having their own back.
Does that mean even the regional office, wala yung counterpart?
We do have, Your Honor, but these are in the Center for Health Development and the operating units, the health facilities, the hospitals. They would have their own procurement officers and back, aside from the central office.
My point, Mr. Chair, limited na oras ko, is that meron naman existing na procurement service and they would probably had more technical expertise, identified suppliers because of their experience sa matagal na panahon. And yet, dito nga sa transaction na to, yung 42 billion, ang claims ng secretary ay limited ang kanilang tauhan, pero meron kayong at least dedicated 25 people who can function to address that concern of the department. And secondly, ito na nga yung nagiging problem natin. I think the PSDBM, ito na yung issues regarding yung quality requirements, ito nang pinag-uusapan natin regarding the standards, no, of the equipment. I believe the procurement service of the Department of Health, considering their experience in the past, ay at alam ko rin, meron silang malalaking mga warehouses. I think years and years back, I was able to visit one of your warehouses, very large, no? Dito sa bandang I think Pioneer Street o dito sa area na to. At naniniwala ko may kapasidad ang Department of Health. Dahil nga sabi ko, sa matagal na panahon, may kapasidad ang Department of Health in this procurement, which brings that doubt why there was the necessity of transferring to the PSDBM. Finally na po, dahil nandiyan na po nga po si Miss Mago, Miss Krizle Mago, a few questions lang.
You can do it in the second round.
Hindi na po ako magsa-second round. Pasensya na po. Pero tanong ko lang po, very brief na lang po. So ano ba talaga yung circumstansya na nag-decide kayo na tanggapin ng protective custody sa House of Representatives, considering na nag-offer na nga yung Senate, no? Ano ho ba ang circumstansya ito? And secondly, based on your testimony now, remember, you said that your testimony during the Senate hearing, again, was under oath. But apparently, meron kayong pagbabago dun sa inyong mga dedeklarang mga statements to this good committee. At nabanggit na nga na itong testimony nyo ngayon ay pwedeng kayong, sinabi na ni Kong Marcoleta, yung konsepto ng perjury, na kapag under oath, tapos binago nyo yung inyong statement, sinabi nyo to ferret out the truth. And ang fear po ng kinatawang ito, how many truths are there? The truth in the Senate or the truth here in the House of Representatives? So, Mr. Chair, pwede nang tanungin, ano yung circumstances, nag-desisyon, tapos alam ba ng ating guest resource person na humingi ng protective custody sa House of Representatives, kung itong sinasabi ngayon na contradiction in the statements in the in the Senate now differs, because sabi nga nyo, she wanted to ferret out the truth or give out the truth, but right now there are two truths. Now ngayon ang kinatawang ito ay hindi malaman kung ano ba talaga ngayon ang magiging proseso na merong ngayong dalawang under oath na mga statements na galing sa iyo, Ma'am Mago.
Your Honor, may I ask you to repeat the questions? Thank you.
Yung una po, yung ano yung circumstances ng pagdedesisyon niyo para tanggapin yung protective custody sa House of Representatives. And secondly, considering that this was also offered to you, I understand, I saw during the Senate hearing, in-offer po kayo na mabigyan ng protective custody. Ang sabi niyo po, in short, pag-aaralan nyo, thank you for the offer, pero kukonsulta ko muna sa mga kung sino man. No? Then second question, sabi ko nga po, may implikasyon yung statement nyo na ginawa nyo under oath sa Senate, ngayon binago nyo dito sa hearing na ito. Particularly, I would like to mention, example, yung sinabi nyo that you were ordered by your superior to change the expiry dates on the face shields, no? So ngayon sinasabi nyo walang nag-order sa inyo. Ngayon ang based sa testimony nyo, sabi nyo dahil nirepack nyo lamang yung mga face shields into tens, I believe, you had to change certifications or ano man yung document na binabanggit nyo. So dito may malaking departure yung sinabi nyo doon sa Senate hearings at ngayon dito sa Committee on Good Government. Kaya ang tanong ko ngayon, ano ba yung ngayong sasabihin, what is the truth now? Considering that there are two truths that you have stated in your testimony under oath, Mr. Chair.
So first question po, Your Honor. To be honest, matagal ko po siyang pinagdesisyonan. There are a lot of factors that I considered. But then again, as stated in my letter to the House of Representatives, kailangan ko po magiging komportable lang po ako magsabi ng totoo in an environment without pressure. So that's the main reason kung bakit pinili ko pong sumulat sa House of Representatives. Walang undue pressure, influence, and the like po. And the second question naman po, with regards to yung dalawang truth po na inyong nabanggit, mas komportable po ako at mas confident sa lahat ng statements na binigay ko po ngayon dahil po pinaghandaan ko, ni-review ko ang mga sources ko. At the same time, I executed an affidavit. Ayun po, Your Honor, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Your time is up. Kung gusto niyo po second round.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hindi na po ako second round. Salamat po.
Thank you, Congressman Gaite. Now we are over with the first round. To avail of the second round is first is DS Marcoleta, 20 minutes.
Maraming salamat uli, Mr. Chair. Nandyan po ba si Attorney Leong?
Deputy Ombudsman Leong, are you here? Deputy, unmute.
I am here, Your Honor.
Good afternoon, Attorney Leong.
Good afternoon, Chairman. Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Kanina pong tinatanong ko si Attorney Lau, nandyan pa kayo at narinig po ninyo yung pagtatanong at saka yung sinagot niya?
Nandito po ako kanina, Mr. Chairman.
More specifically, Attorney Leong, I sort of gave him an information in the case of Bengson versus Senate Blue Ribbon Committee. It's a 1991 case which I believe abandoned the 1950 case of Arnold versus Nazareno, because the Arnold Nazareno case had a liberal interpretation in regard to legislative inquiries. But in 1991, the Supreme Court abandoned the liberal view and adopted a restricted view. In this particular case, Attorney Leong, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the petitioners and they did not testify before the Blue Ribbon Committee because the Supreme Court ruled that the inquiry undertaken by the then Senate Blue Ribbon Committee was not consistent within the valid right of investigation as enunciated in the Constitution. In that case, the Supreme Court said and made it very, very categorical that the speech, the privileged speech rendered by Senator Juan Ponce Enrile was only asking the Senate at the time to look into possibility of corruption in regard to Republic Act 3019. And the Supreme Court in that case said that it is not a valid inquiry because it did not suggest any contemplated piece of legislation. The Senate Blue Ribbon Committee contested the petition for prohibition filed by the petitioners at the time, saying that the allegations of corruption is within the pale of public interest. But the Supreme Court refused to believe that, Attorney Leong. I'm referring again to, aside from that case, Bengson versus Senate Blue Ribbon Committee, which is a rebuke of that committee's prerogative to conduct investigation in aid of legislation. Again, in Neri versus Blue Ribbon Committee, GR number 180643. in regard to public interest, this is what the Supreme Court said. More than anything else, though, the right of Congress or any of its committees to obtain information in aid of legislation cannot be equated with the people's right to public information, because not every legislative inquiry is an exercise of the people's right to information. Did you note that, Attorney Leo?
Yes, Your Honor. I heard that earlier.
And in the administrative case decided by the Supreme Court, 344 SCRA 519, in regard to the contempt power of the Senate, this is the ruling of the Supreme Court. Even the courts of law are repeatedly advised to exercise the power of contempt judiciously and sparingly, with utmost self-restraint, with the end in view of utilizing the same for correction and preservation of the dignity of the court, not for retaliation or vindication. It further said that the court's mandate is to preserve these constitutional principles at all times, to keep the political branches of government within constitutional bounds in the exercise of the respective powers and prerogatives, even if it be in search for truth. Did you note that, Attorney Leong?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Yes, Your Honor.
You yourself testified before the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee, didn't you?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
And did you somehow experience what your co-witnesses did, notably your colleague, Attorney Lau, and now Ms. Mago, had all the chance of being bamboozled and went under a punishing, even harassing interrogation. Did you at some point experience that also before the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee?
Mr. Chairman, in fairness to them, I did not experience that. They were respectful to me, Mr. Chairman. I was questioned twice only.
Why do you think you were questioned twice only? Were you invited only twice?
Natakot siguro dahil ombudsman.
I cannot speculate on that, Mr. Chairman.
When you testified, you were no longer with the PSDBM, but you were already the Deputy Ombudsman. Is that correct, sir?
That statement is correct, Mr. Chairman.
So your being a Deputy Ombudsman might have helped you, either directly or indirectly. Is my assumption correct?
I cannot speculate on that, Mr. Chairman, but I answered them as truthfully based on the law, Mr. Chairman, and the facts.
Are you assuming that the others did not answer the questions truthfully and honestly?
I think they did, Mr. Chairman. I just didn't know the circumstances and as to why they experienced that, Mr. Chairman. I cannot speculate.
Yeah, I have been asking these questions because the only remedy for such kind of questioning, if not interrogation, is for one witness to be able to assert his or her right. For instance, the right of privacy and the right to invoke the right against self-incrimination, which is precisely based on the Bill of Rights of our Constitution. What will you do if you face a particular question that will incriminate you? What is your remedy if a particular rule will say, before you answer, or before you can invoke your right to self-incrimination, you will have to first hear our question. Because the only way where you can invoke it is for you to know whether or not it will incriminate you. And then the rule will still add, it is for us to determine whether the question will incriminate you. Meaning to say, before you can even invoke the right, which is a protected right in the Constitution, the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee will determine for you whether you can invoke it. What can you say about that?
Well, if you're asking my opinion, Mr. Chairman, I would beg to disagree on that interpretation, because precisely if I was asked a question and I think that if it would incriminate me, then it is upon the resource speaker to invoke such right.
I can understand that answer very well, because the rule went further. Even if that committee believe that you can invoke your right to self-incrimination, the rule says you still cannot refuse to answer that question. What do you say to that?
That would be very difficult, Your Honor, but for the resource speakers, I would say that they would have to stand their ground if they want to invoke the right, Your Honor. Again, I'm speaking based on hypothetically, Mr. Chairman. But as a lawyer, I would say that if they want to invoke it, they should be able to invoke it because it is their right, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, that is correct, Attorney Leong.
As a lawyer.
As a lawyer, but this is not hypothetical because their very rules indicate walang hypothetical, kasi nakalagay dito, bago ka makapag-refuse na sagutin ang tanong namin on the basis of self-incrimination, kailangan malaman mo muna yung tanong. And that is the only time, pag narinig mo na yung tanong, saka mo lang i-invoke yung self-incrimination. Ngayon, pag in-invoke mo, sabi niya, teka muna, hindi ka basta makaka-invoke, titingnan muna namin kung talagang invocable. Meaning to say, Attorney Leong, parang binigyan ka ng pagkakataon, halimbawa, ng mga kaibigan, Attorney Leong, sabi niya, napakasarap nitong pagkain na ito. Baka gusto mong tikman. Eh nakita mo naman medyo parang hindi mo pwedeng matikman kasi either diabetic ka o high blood ka. In other words, meron kang kapansanan na hindi mo pwedeng tikman yung ino-offer sa'yo. Hindi sinagot mo, salamat po kaibigan, pero hindi ko po pwedeng tikman yan kasi diabetic po ako. Parang niyang sinabi sa'yo, ako nakakaalam sa'yo, hindi makakasama sa'yo to. Kailangan matikman mo ito. Hindi, high blood ako medyo napakaraming mantika ng pinatitikim mo sa akin. Sorry, pero salamat na lang. Hindi makakabuti sa iyo ito. Huwag kang maniwala sa sinasabi mo na high blood ka. Attorney Leong, ito yung sinasabi ko na mas marunong pa sila doon sa tao na gustong i-invoke ang right of incrimination. The right against self-incrimination is an inherent and protected right under our Constitution. Nobody can make or adopt any rules and regulations that will even go against our fundamental law. Can you imagine, Attorney Leong? Kahit in-invoke mo na at nalaman nila na kaya mong i-invoke talaga sapagkat karapatan mo yon, it becomes illusory because according to the rules, still you cannot refuse answering their question. What kind of environment is that, Attorney Leong?
Oh, Mr. Chairman, for me, I also handled clients before when I was a practicing lawyer. If they invoke their right against incrimination, Your Honor, it should be respected because it's their fundamental right, Mr. Chairman.
But in the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee, you cannot refuse to answer. If you refuse to answer, you will be cited or punished with contempt. And they will say that you are either falsely replying or evasively replying the question. And it is like a sword of Damocles hanging on your head. That is what happened with Ms. Mago. She was under pressure. She was under duress. She's not allowed to explain herself. When she made the request to refer to some records or to review the videotape, she was not given any of those reprieve or time to review anything. Kaya nga, naalala ko yung sinabi ni Senator Joker Arroyo that it is better, sabi niya, to appear before the military commission during the time of the dreaded martial rule of the former President Marcos. Because in that military commission, it allowed the accused to appear with lawyers who will defend his case against them. The accused has even the right to question the credibility, the probity, and independence of the members of the military commission. In the courts of law, Attorney Leong, as you have testified, anybody has the right to engage a counsel of his own choice because that is the only way to protect his rights, his God-given rights. When an officer of the Pharmally answered questions that are not to their likings, he was cited in contempt, and I think he is in detention. They issued the warrant of arrest, despite the fact that the authority does not appear in the rules of the Senate and in the rules of the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee. Do you think the right of liberty of the Pharmally official was violated, considering the lack of due process?
That's difficult for me to answer, Your Honor, but as I believe he gave an answer, Your Honor, so that would depend on the appreciation of the Senate, Your Honor.
What did you mean by that, Attorney Leong?
From what I heard, the person who is now detained in the Senate gave what he believed was gave his answer, Your Honor, but the senators think that he is being evasive. So, yun yung naging problema doon, Your Honor, and I think he should consult his counsel.
That is precisely what we are trying to decipher and unpack here, Attorney Leong, considering that you are also a lawyer. If a particular witness or a source person will give an answer which is not expected or not anticipated or not within the liking of the one asking the question, will that be a ground for being cited for contempt? Will there be due process in that case? Why would the person asking question believe that the answer given is not correct? Who is going to determine whether or not the question is evasive? Where will justice be in this kind of environment, Attorney Leong? First of all, the Senate procedures rules and procedures, as well as the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee, do not have the authority to issue an order of arrest. You and I know that because we're both lawyers. If we want somebody to be apprehended, we will go to court and ask for a warrant of arrest. That is always the case. If the executive department cannot arrest anybody without going through the court, does that give the legislative department the right to arrest anybody without going to court? I'm sorry if I ask too much questions, but you know, this is the only way where we can ferret out the truth. The Senate Blue Ribbon Committee, the very motto is, and the truth shall set us free. If this is the only way for us to be able to set us free, the whole nation, there's controversy that gripping the whole nation. So let it be, Attorney Leong. Are you exercising your right to privacy, Attorney Leong?
Yes, Your Honor. I wouldn't divulge private my address in the public, Your Honor.
What does that exactly mean?
I believe that's my protected right, Mr. Chairman. Kung ibibigay yan in public, pwede po kayo kahit ano, pwede po kayo guluhin kahit kanino, kahit nino. So that is why it's protected by the law. Your private details, your address, even your cell phone number, Your Honor, Mr. Chairman.
Hindi po, ang tinatanong ko sa inyo kanina, tama ba yung nangyari so far na ginagawa sa kabilang chamber na kahit wala silang power to issue order of arrest at dahil lamang sa hindi nila nagustuhan yung tanong ay yung sagot sa kanilang tanong, sapagkat yung sagot na nakuha ay maaaring hindi yun ang gusto niyang isagot nung tinanong, ito po ba ay mga grounds para i-cite mo ang isang tao in contempt without due process of law?
Sa trial court po, Mr. Chairman, kung hindi nagustuhan ng judge yung tanong, hindi po yun basis, yung sagot, hindi po yun basis to cite in contempt.
Tama po, sapagkat ang huwes ay siya nang bahala na gagawa ng pagdidesisyon base sa kanyang pagtaya doon sa sagot na ibinigay ng litigant before him.
Tama po yan, Mr. Chairman.
Pero ang nangyayari po ngayon, hindi ka na nga makasagot sapagkat ang kalayaan mo sa pagsagot ay may nakaamba sa'yo sapagkat inaalala mo ngayon kung sasagot ka ng gusto mo, hindi naman nila magugustuhan ang sagot mo, sasabihin nila evasive ka o maaaring nagsisinungaling ka. Paano ngayon makukuha yung katotohanan kung ang pagtatanong ay nasa ilalim ng pananakot at intimidation? Paano mangyayari na makukuha natin ang katotohanan pagka hindi mo binigyan ng conducive environment ang isang testigo na inimbitahan mo para magsaysay ng katotohanan sa mga bagay-bagay na gusto mong itanong sa kanya? Ito po yung gusto nating malinawan so that, Mr. Chair, kasi na po sa allegations or declarations ng ating mga respondents, lumilitaw po talaga na kung minsan naaabuso po yung kapangyarihan to conduct formal inquiries and investigation in aid of legislation. kagaya po ng ating napapatunayan ngayon, imbes na po na kung totoo po talaga nakapag-build na sila ng case against, let's say, Pharmally, base na rin po sa tuntunin nila, Mr. Chair. Ito po ay ripe for any action that they want to file before any court of law. Nakalagay naman po sa kanilang alituntunin, if they are able to uncover misfeasance, malfeasance, and misfeasance, pwede na silang pumunta sa Ombudsman and DOJ. The only problem, Mr. Chair, is this. Ito po ang iniimbestigahan nila ngayon, private matters na, Pharmally and all its officials and other employees. Paano ba po natin makikita yung malfeasance, misfeasance, and nonfeasance? Considering that these are violations or even infractions that involve public officials and employees. Pharmally and its employees and officials are not public officers. So paano po nila i-connect yung malfeasance, nonfeasance, and misfeasance? And nandun naman po sa section 1 ng kanilang alituntunin yun. So, Attorney Leong, that is related to the last question. How do you think the other chamber will be able to connect malfeasance and misfeasance or nonfeasance if there is no connection between Pharmally and any conspiring public official of the PSDBM? How is it possible to connect that?
To be honest, Mr. Chairman, I cannot decipher that also, Mr. Chairman. The questions right now pertains to Pharmally. Hindi naman po kasama yon sa aming procurement po. Yung procurement po namin, Mr. Chairman, kung tatanungin yung overpricing, nasagot na po yon. And I think COA also gave their answer. With respect po sa capitalization, I think nasagot na rin yon. And kung gugustuhin po, I think si GPPB mas magandang sumagot kung merong minimum capitalization requirement sa emergency procurement or meron bang liquidity requirement, yan po yung NFCC, the ability to absorb additional contracts, NFCC po yan, kung meron bang requirement na ganyan sa emergency procurement ng Bayanihan 1 for goods, o kahit sa 9184 for negotiated procurement under emergency cases. Kasi kung kami yung tatanungin, sinagot na po namin yan, wala pong NFCC, wala pong minimum capitalization requirement sa emergency procurement, both in 9184 and in Bayanihan law, Mr. Chairman. So, with respect to procurement, yan po yung sagot ko, yan po yung under investigation ngayon. Malinaw naman po yung sagot doon. With respect to cost of goods ni Pharmally, I don't think kahit ang pribadong sektor, tinatanong nila kung magkano yung cost of goods, kung saan sila bibili po. So, pero if the legislative department wants, maybe it can be the subject of legislation, Mr. Chairman.
Tama po kayo, Attorney Leong. Lahat po ng binanggit ninyo ay sarado na sapagkat magmula pa sa COA, sa unang pagdinig pa lang namin, na-establish na namin, una, walang corruption, pangalawa, walang overpricing, pangatlo, wala namang ghost delivery. At ito ay pinatunayan na ng mga ensya na nag-receive ng mga pandemic items na patunayan sa pamagitan ng testimony ng DOH na ito po ay na-deliver at ito ay tinanggap ng mga empleyado na kailangan ito, itong ating mga frontliners. At sinabi na rin ng PSDBM na ito naman ay dumaan din sa proseso kahit na nga exempted na nga sa 9184, gumamit pa rin kayo ng due diligence katulad ng ITR na siyang kumakatawan sa financial technical capacity, yung mayor's permit, ito naman yung kumatawan sa legal requirement, at saka yung omnibus sworn statement na ito naman ang kumatawan sa technical capacity. Sa makatid, napatunayan namin so far na wala namang maikukonek na misfeasance, malfeasance, or non-feasance na kagagawan ng ating mga empleyado sa gobyerno para maikonek kung meron man doon sa kanilang pinagtityagaan ngayon na hindi namin malaman kung saan papunta itong expedition na ito, Mr. Chair. No? Kung ito po ay isang expedition embark which is headed to the moon, sila lamang po nakakaalam noon. Pero ang pinaka-importante sana, kung may connection po sana na malfeasance at saka yung non-feasance or misfeasance, doon lamang pwedeng ipagpatuloy ang isang investigasyon na may kinalaman sa mga pribadong kumpanya. Otherwise, Attorney Leong, ito na dapat ay ibinigay na sa prosecution sapagkat sa sinabi nga dito sa mga binanggit nating mga decided cases ng Supreme Court, yung legislature is not a trial agency. It's not even a prosecutorial office. They are already encroaching on particular responsibilities beyond the powers conferred by the Constitution itself. That is the whole point. So, huling tanong na lang, pasensya ka na, Attorney Leong, kapag ka sinabi mo na hindi makakabuti sa iyo yung pinatitikim na pagkain sapagkat either diabetic ka o kaya mataas ang blood pressure mo, ikaw ang nakakaalam kung anong mabuti sa iyo, hindi ba?
Tama po, Mr. Chairman.
Hindi yung nag-o-offer sa iyo ng pagkain.
Opo, Mr. Chairman.
Kaya pag in-invoke mo yung right to self-incrimination, alam mo, ikaw ang may incriminate, hindi yung nagtatanong sa iyo. Tama ba yun?
Tama po yun, Mr. Chairman.
Kapag hindi pinagkaloob sa iyo yun, samantalang ikaw nang nakakaalam kung anong mabuti sa iyo, parang hindi nakapani-paniwala yung ginagawa nung nagtatanong. Hindi ba ganun ang assumption?
Ganun po yung assumption, Mr. Chairman.
Salamat po. Salamat, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Last on the second round is Congressman Joe Jimenez.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Considering this is our fourth hearing, and after hearing the testimonies of the resource persons, and if I may emphasize, listening to their testimonies given to the committee free from intimidation, fear, or duress, Mr. Chairman. And after the issuance of the subpoenas, and I'm pretty sure we will be able to get the documents as we requested, Mr. Chair. I therefore move to terminate the conduct of the motu proprio inquiry on the 2020 annual audit report of the Commission on Audit on the Department of Health regarding the funds transferred to PS-DBM for the procurement of the medical supplies and equipment for COVID response and the alleged overpricing on the supplies. So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second the motion, Mr. Chair.
With the motion of Representative Jimenez, duly seconded by Deputy Speaker Marcoleta, hearing no objection, the hearing on the motu proprio inquiry regarding the 2020 COA annual report on DOH fund transfer to PS-DBM for the procurement of medical supplies and equipment is hereby terminated. The committee secretariat and technical staff are hereby directed to draft the committee report. As there are no other matters for discussion, the meeting is adjourned. Maraming po salamat sa aking mga kasama sa komite at sa ating mga panauhin at sa inyong suporta at kooperasyon sa mga gawain ng Kongreso. Mabuhay po kayo lahat at mag-ingat po tayo.
Thank you very much.
Thank you po. Thank you sa lahat, mga resource persons and members.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you po. Thank you po.
Thank you.
Thank you, Baba.
Subscribe to SMNI News Channel and turn on notification button for more news updates.